Part 54. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 533. But he still threatened Tanger Tankai. Anyway, in the view of the guards, there is nothing to be gained from this tantalum camp in Kuti. So they simply let it go. Not long after, a huge car with a height of 5 meters and a width of about 10 meters slowly drove along the road towards the terrifying giant creature. When the other party operated the crane and slowly pulled the huge monster to the car body. The monster's compound eyes had a faint twinkle of brilliance. But soon, this brilliance gradually extinguished. Jia Yan felt as if his body had been hit by a heavy truck. He couldn't remember the previous scene very clearly. He only knew that as he approached the planet, his body could no longer bear it. At the previous moment, it could be said that it fell without any energy. And when he was groggy, he felt a powerful attacking force. This power made him almost faint. He knew that he hit the ground. The opponent's attack did not cause any injuries to his body, but only deformed the metal armor in some areas. If the huge monster continues to attack, no matter how weak Jia Yan is, he will definitely fight back. No matter how exhausted his body was, it was still not to the extent of being abused by a creature that obviously did not reach the starry sky level. However, the opponent did not launch any further attacks, and Jia Yan let his body continue to linger on the ground. He felt that his body was no longer his, and the intense fatigue and mental weakness after the battle made him feel the same discomfort he had experienced for the first time since his rebirth. This has never happened before. I hate the air here, I hate the scenery here, I hate everything here. Sitting in the transport vehicle, Jia Yan looked at the blue sky and white clouds above his head that were similar to the earth. All of this made him feel uncomfortable. Perhaps the difference is not that big, at least for a large mosquito with extremely strong vitality. To him, this difference should not be so frustrating to him. But being too far away from my hometown makes this uncomfortable feeling superimposed. But the fact is the fact, even if the big mosquito wants to deny it, this fact cannot be changed. At this moment, Jia Yan finally went from being groggy to slowly entering a deep sleep. After becoming a giant mosquito, he seldom slept. Even sleeping is just something to pass the time. But now he is really overtired and must enter sleep, which consumes the least amount of energy, in order to slowly repair his body. However, there is still a trace of vigilance. After all, giant mosquitoes are giant mosquitoes. Even if they are giant mosquitoes, they cannot be bullied by dogs. Time passed by so well. When Jia Yan woke up, he found some strange feelings all over his body. He did not move, but continued to lie down as before. I remember that before, I was supposed to be taken away by an alien car, but now this is. Jia Yan looked around strangely. He was in a huge building, but his body occupied most of it. Maybe this hall used to be a place for discussions. So a lot of tables and chairs were put aside. Jia Yan discovered some of the tools that were very similar to those used by people on Earth. He pondered for a while and then responded that the aliens who brought him here should be some kind of species similar to people on Earth. But at this time, he didn't care so much. There are still many alien creatures similar to the Earth, and they are only similar to a certain extent. Hands and feet are not unique features of Earthlings. His mind became a little clearer. I must have been attacked by a powerful creature before. Now that I think about it, the power of his attack is equivalent to the peak of heaven level to star condensed matter. How can there be such a powerful person? Jia Yan is a little strange. In the system of strong men he knows, the peak of the sky level is already a top level. If he wants to continue to take a step forward, he can only enter the starry sky level, and the previous creature actually reached one of the two. This is something that is hard to imagine for Jia Yan, who is familiar with the level of strong men. But Jia Yan looked back and thought, this is definitely not the star field where the solar system is located, and it is even far away from the entire Angel's Arm star field. Anything can happen here, not to mention the difference in the level of the strong. He laughed a little at himself. After that, Jia Yan continued to start further research of his own. Now that I'm here, I have no choice. This kind of thing cannot be reversed. Then I can only live here and see if there is any way to return to the solar system. No. Even if I can return to the fairy arm, I will be a what a feat. Jia Yan has extremely uncomfortable thoughts about his future. On Earth, he has his family and the power he has developed. Now everything has turned into nothingness. This kind of feeling is extremely bad. Jia Yan feels that the future is bleak. This planet is so huge, and its mass is only more than twice that of the Earth. While Jia Yan was pondering, he was also slowly exploring the specific state of the planet. And the air here actually has a faint feeling of activating my body. No. This feeling has been found in the starry sky. Although I don't like this kind of thing, in fact, it can make me feel alive. A substance that makes life more vigorous. Jia Yan was a little surprised. Some discoveries made him have a lot of guesses about the area where he is now. However, these ideas have not been verified by himself. That powerful substance only made his body more active, but the benefits of this kind of thing will be reflected very slowly, and the answer will not be available for a while. But as he continued to think, Jia Yan heard some slight footsteps. He quickly ordered himself to maintain his previous movements. As for his eyes, he had no eyelids, so even if he looked at other creatures, there would be no abnormality. When he saw the person clearly, Jia Yan's compound eyes had a strange luster. Because he was surprised to find that the appearance of these creatures was extremely similar to people on Earth. Their skin is just darker and has a touch of pink. Otherwise, their body shape and other characteristics are almost the same as those on Earth. These were 3 men and 1 woman who were similar to Earthlings. They walked into the house where Jia Yan was located. One of them had an unmoving expression, while the other 3 had expressions of surprise. They chatted a lot, and Jia Yan listened softly. From their intonations, Jia Yan even heard a few words in the Ostal language. This gave him another strange association. But he still didn't move too much. Now he wanted to see if these strange intelligent creatures were subordinates of the previous monster or something. If so, then he should be careful. After all, his energy has not recovered yet. If he encounters that monster again, although he is safe, Jia Yan is worried about whether there is any powerful force behind him or someone stronger or something like that. Even if there is no strong person, he does not dare to underestimate the technological power of this planet. After all, Oro has said it. They would come to a prosperous area far beyond the Hercules Arm star territory. In this way, he had no doubt that there were some powerful technological weapons that could even kill him. At this time, Jia Yan was thinking about things while trying hard to observe the words of these pink-skinned creatures. His prophecy ability has been verified in the past. Now that he has learning experience, it is not that difficult to learn another language similar to the Asta human language. These humanoid creatures circled around Jia Yanro for a long time, and then uttered some strange words from their mouths. They interrogated the latter man one by one, and the words seemed to be some doubtful questions. As for the latter man, Jia Yan found that he was the man with his own car. At this time, he felt proud and spoke. They had some instruments in their hands, aimed at Jia Yan's body, and shined some light on it. Especially when the armor on his body was illuminated, a smile appeared on his face. However, these human-like creatures soon had serious expressions. Because of their instruments, some strange beeping sounds were being heard. They discovered Jia Yan's bioelectric pulse signal. Obviously, this huge creature in front of us is a living creature. The 4 old men immediately let out a scream and at the same time retreated vigilantly towards the rear. The other 3 people also quickly retreated. Their eyes were fixed on Jia Yan's location, and their expressions were uncertain, because their instruments seemed to confirm that Jia Yan, the creature, was obviously still alive. Jia Yan was startled for a moment, but he didn't make any move after that. He wanted to see what these people would do. Even if they want to report something, they can't escape in front of Jia Yan. After all, Jia Yan has tested it before. The combat effectiveness of the four opponents is at the earth level at most. In front of him, a brainwave power, it can be solved. The four people looked at Jia Yan with some fear, but they relaxed after seeing that he didn't move at all. They thought that this living creature might still be in a coma and not wake up. Tankai, look at you, you did it all. What should we do now? If the guards find out that he is still alive, then the safety of our tribe will be at risk. Tang Ci listened to the elder's words and felt a little depressed and wanted to defend himself. But he couldn't say any words. Because it was originally his mistake this time, how could he have thought that the creature that the adults didn't even think was alive would still be alive when he picked it up? If he knew that the monster he picked up was actually still among the lords in their forest area in terms of essential strength, and that the energy fluctuations it emitted were such that even the lord could not easily detect his strength, then Tangzi would not dare to do so. Picked it back up. At this time, Tankai had no choice. As a young tribesman who made some mistakes at this time, he should bear the responsibility. Then, I'm going to tell the Lord that all this is my responsibility, and this monster is left to him. He stated his method somewhat submissively. How is it possible? It's not like you don't know that the Lord has wanted the scientific and technological knowledge of our Kudi Tantalum people for a long time. If he catches us this time, he will definitely make us hand over a lot of information. This won't work. These are all, there is no way we can hand over the things belonging to our ancestors, the old man refuted Tankai's words. Then, let's quietly kill this monster while it's still sleeping. Isn't this just as we agreed before? The woman who looked to be in her 20s spoke. Of course, it was unknown whether the age of these Kudi Tantalum people was the same as that of the people on Earth. Do you think he is really sleeping? Maybe he has woken up now, the old man looked at Jia Yan and said with some uncertainty. Ah, the remaining people took a step back in shock. Let's do this, let's observe it for a few days first, Tangs. Since you are responsible for this matter, then he will be handed over to you. Water him in the past few days. Also, your energy quota for this month, take them out and put them next to him. If such a strong man is alive, he will definitely respond to the energy. The old man finally made a decision. Everyone left the hall, except for Tangzi, who stood there with a sad face. That's weird. How can you still be alive? Tankai looked at Jia Yan. But the next moment, the slender tentacles of the big mosquito moved slightly. He was so frightened that he wanted to run away, but when he calmed down, he found that the big monster didn't move at all. Tankai took charge of Jia Yan's affairs. In fact, it is said that he is responsible and there is nothing to do. He just stands next to Jia Yan with some technological toys and takes a look when he has time. Jia Yan looked at the earthly male creature next to him with some amusement. He looks like a person on Earth who is under 20 years old, and he is obviously a fun-loving age. Jia Yan saw this guy bring some technological things, but he couldn't understand the principle at all. Sometimes, the boy would wear a device and then levitate in the air, making loud shouts and charging movements. Wait until you are sweating profusely. Then he stopped and played another game. But Jia Yan also learned some language things through the words he spoke. The biggest reward was that this boy actually brought a book into the Hall of Mosquito one day. He even has a habit of reading while reading. Jia Yan's eyes were a little bright, and he studied the books he left here that night. Although the content of the book is an irrelevant novel, he has mastered the general language type through studying during the day. After analyzing it later, he can guess the general meaning of most of the language content. At this point, it's time to make contact. The time on this planet is still different for the Earth. 1 day is equivalent to a little more than 2 days on the Earth. A few days have passed, which is almost as long as a week on Earth. On his first day, Jia Yan discovered that the boy had placed a divine item next to his body. This item is a fan-like substance, but when it is turned on, a faint stream of energy and heat will spurt out. Jia Yan didn't understand its principle at first. When he saw the boy, he felt a little pity. He blocked his body in front of Jia Yan and endured the substance. After that, Jia Yan could feel some of the substance. Part of it was absorbed by its body. We Kudi tantalum people have very little energy. I can only enjoy it once a month. It may replenish our energy for several days. We don't need to eat. If the elders hadn't said so, I wouldn't be willing to give it. You use it? Tanger Tankai said angrily. However, Jia Yan ignored the words of the Kudi tantalum man. His shiny compound eyes looked at the energy equipment. It turns out that the aliens here obtain energy in this way. But it seems that Jia Yan has also seen them eating. Listening to the words of this Kudi tantalum man, it seems that they are eating because they are unable to directly use this energy for daily use because of a lack of energy. After Jia Yan made his next start at Tanger Tangs, he got the hang of it. He radiated the power of his brain waves and attached all the free energy matter to the surface of his body. After that, a devouring power was activated on his body, completely swallowing them into his body. This way of using energy is extremely efficient. But it's a little too rare. Jia Yan enjoyed the released energy with some unfulfilled interest. He did not expect that his actions had already made Tanger Tangza look at him in horror. Jia Yan can swallow all the energy ejected in an instant. This is not a surprising thing. Every powerful creature can do it. What surprises him is that Jia Yan's one looks dead. The monster is actually a living creature. Child, long, elder. He stumbled out. What Tanger Tankai said was true, but when the old man he had seen before appeared, Jia Yan remained motionless, making others unable to believe what he said. And finally, a week has passed. At this point, Jia Yan felt that his body's strength had faintly recovered to the point where he could at least fight on a small scale. He decided to start communicating. After all, it is not easy for a strong man of his level to recover energy if he loses it. If he doesn't want to wait for hundreds of years, Jia Yan has no choice but to take action and find energy-repairing substances by himself. And after so many battles, Jia Yan has a vague feeling that his next mutation has already had a chance to unfold. I just don't know if the mutated substance required for this kind of mutation will be extremely demanding and difficult to find. After all, he has reached the starry sky level, and the next period will be a period when mutant matter is hard to find. Kudi, Taman, hello. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 534. Today is Tanger Tangza's fourth day as the caregiver of the giant mosquito. However, because he could no longer work, several young people in the clan had a change in their attitude towards him. Tanger Tangza did not want to see this change. His original intention was not to escape from work, so he brought the huge bird with him. The monster is back. He looked at the monster on the other side with some annoyance, but remembered that its body had moved at some point. I don't dare to say anything harsh. Today, Tanger Tankai was still standing not far from the big mosquito, playing his game as usual. It should have been a very normal day, but this normality became no longer normal after a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Kudi, tantalum, hello. This voice is peaceful and pleasant, and it is the softer voice among the Kudi tantalum men. But the appearance of this voice seemed to make Tanger Tangza jump up as if he had been stabbed. He looked in the direction of the huge giant mosquito in surprise and became a little nervous. He wondered if he had heard wrongly. But the next moment, this voice continued to appear. Hello, I don't mean any harm. Following this sound, something even more frightening to Tangzi happened. The huge monster actually moved at this moment. He was almost like a frightened kitten, screaming with a frightened expression, and was about to rush out of the door to report the news. But a gentle force blocking in front of him, he seemed to have hit a wall and was unable to take another step forward. Hello, hello. Tankai finally knew that the opponent's strength was beyond his ability to fight against, so he stammered and turned around. He spoke in fear towards the huge monster. His voice became a little distorted. It took Jia Yan a while to analyze and guess what he wanted to say. Again, I want to reiterate, I don't have any ill intentions. Jia Yan's huge body moved a little while he was crawling, but he found that these movements could not be done too much, otherwise the house would be knocked down by him. Fortunately, he didn't want to do this, so after discovering this, he stopped. Hello, hello, great being. I'm sorry for bringing you into our small ethnic group. Before Tankai wanted to ask how this monster knew the language of the Kudi Tantalum people, but now this is obviously not the time to ask this. Oh. I won't blame you. If it weren't for you, I might be in more danger. I should thank you. Jia Yan found that although this language is somewhat similar to Ostal language, certain words cannot be spoken too fast, otherwise it will be difficult to speak fast. So he's adjusting. After a simple conversation, Jia Yan finally calmed down the young Kudi Tantalum man. He promised Jia Yan not to report to the so-called lord when he went out, but to report to the elders of their clan, and then let them meet him. As a huge creature with terrifying combat power, Jia Yan naturally possesses extremely powerful deterrence. He knew that the request he made was seen as a threat to other creatures. Therefore, he believed that this young Kudi Tantalum man would not disobey his words. Sure enough, not long after Jia Yan let the young man leave, a burst of nervous footsteps came towards him. Jia Yan smiled slightly. 7 older Kudi Tantalites came here. This race is a race where the elders have great prestige and strength. If converted to Earth terms, it is similar to those elders in martial arts novels. The older they get, the stronger they get. In addition, they also have the most knowledge among the clan, so they hold most of the power of this clan. Hello, respected strong man. An old man walked out first and bowed to Jia Yan. Although they were also afraid of big mosquitoes, they were not as frightened as Tangzi, which showed that they still had a certain degree of determination. What's more, in the eyes of these elders, this monster cannot defeat the lord of their territory, so no matter how powerful the opponent is, it will not exceed the heaven level, and maybe it will only be in the middle or even early stage of the heaven level. And among this group of people, there is an extremely powerful fighting force, and it is still possible to deal with a strong person in the early stage of heaven level. So they are neither humble nor arrogant. Hello everyone, thank you very much for helping me. Jia Yan first put a big hat on the other person as a lifesaver. Although he doesn't need their help, it can bring him closer. The other party was obviously a little more relaxed. The fact that this monster would say such a thing at least meant that the other party was unlikely to be a murderous and capricious existence. No, if you really understand why we did what we did before, you will know that this is not a rescue at all. Please forgive me. The old man also came down the steps and saluted Jia Yan. The two men quickly brushed the issue aside. I first arrived at your planet. I wonder what the planet is called. And, what is the approximate area here? Jia Yan thought about his words, but still asked about the area. After all, what he most urgently wanted was to know where he was. However, he did not expect that the elder had a wrong understanding. The immediate reaction was that Jia Yan came to this starry sky in another way. Oh, you must have come here through space transfer, right? Is there something wrong with your space transfer device? Haha, it's a common thing. As you said, This is the Sky Dragon star, a planet occupied by the powerful Sky Dragon. And this starry sky is the edge of the Kalf star territory. Further ahead, after passing through a desolate area, is the Lot's Empire. The old man was talking and observing Jia Yan's emotions. But it is a pity that Jia Yan, a big mosquito, has great difficulty in expressing his emotions. There is no emotion for him to observe. But in fact, Jia Yan was extremely shocked. There were several words from the elder that deserved his attention. One of them is good news. That is the so-called space transfer. If he guessed correctly, this is a device for space movement. I just don't know if it is any different from the curvature navigation method of the technological civilization of the immortal arm. But if you keep asking, there will always be an answer. The other words the other party said, including Tianlong star, Tianlong powerful man, and the so-called Seeing Erfa star territory, were all terms that Jia Yan had never heard of. Of course, through guessing, he could guess some of the clues. After some inquiring, Jia Yan was very satisfied with getting some of the information he wanted. Naturally, he couldn't ask too many questions to let the other party see that he was not from their star field at all. Although he was not afraid, it was still a trouble. What kind of place will Seeing Erfa star territory be? I have no way of knowing. Fortunately, under the guidance of Daphne, I have learned some knowledge about the stars. As long as you give me a map of the Milky Way, I can know where you are. Thinking of this, Jia Yan felt a little relieved. In fact, what he was most worried about was not that he had arrived in a civilized place, but that he had arrived in a deserted place, which would really cut off his way back to Earth in the future. This old man was very cooperative. He almost answered whatever Jia Yan asked. Even Jia Yan was a little embarrassed to deceive him. Since Your Excellency is in such a situation, I suggest that Your Excellency undergo some training and recovery in our tribe. The old man became more and more enthusiastic as he chatted, and even invited Jia Yan to come. Jia Yan was silent. He didn't know what the other party wanted, but he definitely had his purpose, but he could stay here. It may not be a good plan either. Through the other party's words, he knew. The one who attacked him before was a so-called lord in the Tianlong star area, that is, a manager assigned by the strong Tianlongs. This strong man was a peak heaven-level person. Of course, in other languages, the title is not Tian level, but Jia Yan can translate it like this. But the opponent's abnormal fighting strength also made Jia Yan deeply afraid. And if a lord is so strong, what about those heavenly dragon powerful? There are also a few cosmic mercenary masters who are in awe. In the old man's words, how powerful can these beings be? His body has not yet recovered its strength. In such a place where the strength of a strong person may be far greater than that of the previous star field, Jia Yan does not dare to leave directly. If he is attacked by a strong person again, he does not know how he will die. So after thinking about it, Jia Yan agreed. Since we will be together for some time in the future, then I wonder what your name is. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment when he heard the other party asking him his name. After that, he didn't think much about it and directly said his real name, which was also the name that he hadn't mentioned for a long time. Jia Yan, he said. Jia Yan. The other party chewed on the name. This exchange was only a short one, and the Kudi Tantalum people quickly retreated. It's hard for Jia Yan to show up, so he still stays in this big house. It turns out that these Kudi Tantalum people want me to be their protector when they are in crisis. Through the previous words, Jia Yan finally knew what the other party wanted. But he didn't feel uncomfortable. To put it bluntly, it was a deal. If the other party didn't ask for anything and protected him unilaterally, Jia Yan would be worried. Of course, all of this is not certain. I am not familiar with this planet or even this starry sky, so I still have to be vigilant and not relax when it comes to things to worry about. Jia Yan had some doubts. It seems that the strongest people on this planet are those Tianlong experts and the so-called cosmic mercenaries. I don't know how powerful they are, and there is no scientific and technological civilization here. I don't seem to have any so excellent. Jia Yan clearly heard Oro say that what they were about to arrive would be a dazzling place of real technology and civilization, but now it seems that the lives of these Kudi Tantalum people are not very high-tech, of course. Far more than the people on Earth, but not like he imagined that he could fly by relying on instruments while walking. After some thinking, Jia Yan thought a lot. The only thing he can be sure of is that if he regains his strength, it will be very simple to take down the so-called Forest Lord. I just don't know if I can win against the absolute strong men on this planet or their siege. As far as the strong are concerned, this is indeed a place with dazzling civilization. Moreover, the Kudi Tantalum people also said that this is a remote place, and they don't know how powerful the real strong are. Now that he knows that this planet has powerful people that Jia Yan really needs to be afraid of. Then Jia Yan gave up the idea of going out temporarily. However, through the Kudi Tantalum people, he asked them to donate some of the energy they had used before. Although it was a drop in the bucket for him, it was better than nothing. Even with this delay, Jia Yan can roughly recover from his injuries. It is extremely difficult to recover from a starry sky level injury. Even for an evolved beast like him, it is an extremely difficult problem. Of course, Jia Yan is an evolved beast after all. In this regard, evolved beasts have great advantages. He predicts that although the energy cannot be restored quickly, the minor injuries and fatigue on the body will be repaired within 10 days on this planet, which is less than 1 month on Earth. If you follow what Oro said, this is definitely a very prosperous area in the Milky Way. As for leaving the Milky Way, that's simply impossible. Jia Yan knows a little about astronomy, so he knows that this place is definitely still in the Milky Way, because the Milky Way is not such a simple thing. In the universe, a Milky Way is just an extremely inconspicuous small place. It is a vast and boundless area. It is extremely unrealistic to go from the Milky Way to nearby galaxies. No matter how whimsical Jia Yan is, he would never think that he could reach other galaxies through gravitational waves in such a short period of time. Time passed quickly. During these times, Jia Yan continued to use his recovered brainwave power to spread out and monitor the Kudi Tantalum people. Even if they communicated or went out, they would be subject to suspicious detection. Even so, he still keeps his energy pumping at all times. Even if his body has not fully recovered now, if a strong enemy really comes to the door, he cannot really defeat the opponent. What's more, even if he has not recovered yet, but when those so-called powerful heavenly dragons come, who will win and who will lose will have to be fought to know. Through analysis, Jia Yan knew that they were only at the starry sky level. Finally, the time came 10 days later. Master Jia Yan, the energy share you requested is here, a young voice spoke. Jia Yan turned around and saw that this was the man responsible for taking care of him. That is, the man Tang Ci who doesn't seem to be so popular in this tribe. Thank you. Jia Yan released his brainwave power, took the instrument from the opponent's hand, and then turned on the switch familiarly. A wind like an electric fan blew out, bringing waves of energy. It makes the big mosquito feel comfortable. Tangzi on the side was also enjoying it, but a little secretly. Jia Yan didn't care much. He didn't care about such a small amount of energy. It made no difference whether he had it or not. Tangkai didn't know that his little trick had been discovered, he was just enjoying himself in his heart. They can only enjoy similar energy once a month, but taking care of Jia Yan here, he can enjoy it for a while every day. Recently, he has stopped eating other foods at all. Without the toxins, his complexion has become much better. Tangkai, tell me, are there any mineral specialties on this planet? Or where are better similar specialties in this starry sky? Suddenly, Jia Yan's voice sounded so shocking that Tangzi fell down in fright. He thought his little move was stopped by the other party, but fortunately Jia Yan was asking him. After organizing some words, he quickly answered. That's right, sir, I haven't experienced any very unique specialties in Tianlong Star. Otherwise, this place wouldn't be so deserted. It is only occupied by some mercenaries and Tianlong experts. But I know that in the star system, there is a specialty star near the edge of the star, and there are many forces fighting there, competing for the minerals in it every day. Oh, Jia Yan was still prepared for the fact that Tianlong planet did not have any special products. After all, if this planet had special products, it would definitely not be a good ecological environment. But when he heard that there was a special planet in the star system, he immediately became interested. What kind of planet is that? What special products does it have? How far is it from here? Jia Yan asked like a rapid fire. Tankai was a little surprised by Jia Yan's reaction. But he cleared his throat anyway. Then respond directly. Sir, there is a small planet very close to the star, but it has the space chaos stone that many forces want. This kind of stone is what the strong need, and can enhance the brainwave power of the strong. There are also some unique the holy powerhouses can use similar stones to enhance their physical strength. So this is a very cherished mineral, but the minerals there have a lot of impurities, and it is too close to the Lot's empire, so it is really the big forces don't dare and don't have the need to come over, so it's all the small forces competing there. After Tangza said so much, he looked at Jia Yan strangely. This Lord Jia Yan was very similar to his mount Little Mosquito, but they couldn't be of the same race. After all, Xiao Mosquito was of the same race. There is no intelligent species. In fact, the Kudi Tantalum people are also guessing where Jia Yan's huge monster comes from, but they don't have any clues. The more they know about the big mosquito, the clearer they become that this huge monster is far more powerful than it appears. It was such a miserable day. Therefore, the elders were also grateful for the decision made that day. If they really relied on one of their weapons to fight against the opponent, they might die without even knowing it. Very good, you gave me a very useful piece of information. But, you go out and tell them that in the next few days, I want you to help me collect some minerals or special substances. The specific requirements are. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 535. After Jia Yan heard Tangza's words, there was something strange in his compound eyes, and he said some demanding words. Originally, he didn't want to carry out the following work so soon, but now at this critical moment, he couldn't care about so much. A nice mineral spot that was worth his little risk. In the middle and late stages, strong people no longer rely on just chance to become strong. Their strength must have certain plans and initiatives. If Jia Yan still relies on the initial mutation, waiting for so-called opportunities or other things, then his strong footsteps it might just stop like this. At this moment, it is true that he has just arrived here. He should have kept a low profile and decided after seeing the prosperity of this so-called dazzling place of civilization, as well as the level of technology and powerhouses. But Jia Yan knows that if you don't pursue some things, you will miss them if you miss them. Not a few days. Sir, we have tried our best to get only these few supplies you asked for. An old man from the Kudi Tantalum tribe looked at the tribesmen around him, operating machines one by one, carrying back bags of things from the outside world, while explaining to Jia Yan. I already know your situation in Tianlongxing. I am very satisfied with how this matter has been done. Thank you. Jia Yanfu's eyes were shining, and he didn't believe what the old man said. After a few days of understanding, he finally knew. This part of the Kudi Tantalum people turned out to be in a very similar situation to him. They also left their homes and found a temporary habitat on this planet. The so-called Kudi Tantalum people are a very sad race in the interstellar civilization here. They have extremely poor physical fitness in this star field, and they are a race that can be bullied by others. It has been bullied for hundreds of thousands of years. This time, during an enemy attack, the entire civilization fell apart again. Many Kudi Tantalites were on the run, and their group was one of them. After reading their history, Jia Yan even had a little guess about their appearance hundreds of thousands of years ago. As a mosquito, even though Jia Yan has evolved to this point, some of his instincts have not degenerated, so he can know through the physical sensations of the Kudi Tantalum people faintly conveyed in the air that they are different from the people on Earth, and the people of Osto are all related by blood. No matter what the reason is, being able to see a slightly related race in such a distant place, and even among this race, there is a wonderful creature like Jia Yan's riding mosquito, so Jia Yan's this race has an extra layer of favorability. The elders were right. They, the Kudi Tantalum people, had a very unsatisfactory life on Tianlong Star. They finally bought a piece of land, but there were many restrictions, but they were still developing slowly. Even after trying so hard. But it was just a matter of buying some of the materials Jia Yan wanted. Better than nothing. Waiting for the Kudi Tantalum people to leave, Jia Yan looked at the bags of supplies on the ground and felt a little excited. Even though it's not much, it's enough for me to restore some energy. Jia Yan's brainwave power was activated, and the bags of supplies in front of him flew up one by one. Their seals are automatically broken, and the big mosquito knows what is inside without having to look. These things are actually things recorded in the mineral books that Tang Tankai read through when Jia Yan was resting. Among them, some Jia Yan guessed correctly, some guessed wrong, some were useful to him, but some had no effect at all. But these bags of supplies total more than 500 kilograms. If you pick and choose among them, you can also get some things that will help restore Jia Yan's current body energy. Evolved beasts are so scary. As long as they get the right material and as long as they can absorb the energy in it through various methods, then any danger will no longer be a danger to them. After Jia Yan sorted the materials here again, he finally let out a long sigh. Of the more than 500 kilograms of supplies, I can use only about half, or about 200 kilograms, which is already a lot. Jia Yan didn't know how much energy the Kudi Tantalum people spent in gathering these supplies, but this did not prevent Jia Yan from growing fond of them. Some of them are solid and difficult to absorb, and some are liquid. Among them is the liquid volcanic magma from a unique volcano on this planet. I think it is the best thing for me now. I just don't know that a volcano can actually. What kind of principle would it be for magma that can remain liquid and not condense when it is put into the air? After sorting all the materials, Jia Yan arranged the priority order. He simply discarded the things that were of least use to him, and they even contained some ores that might contain energy that was useful to him. Because it would be too troublesome to absorb. Okay, let's start with the simplest thing and restore at least some of the energy, otherwise the ore below won't have the energy to devour it. Jia Yan gently moved his slender mouthparts and probed it to the giant barrel of volcanic magma. This bucket of volcanic magma may have been obtained by the Kudi Tantalum people at the greatest cost. After all, how could this planet not pay attention to such a simple energy? Therefore, they definitely spent a lot of money to obtain these magmas that are useful to most living things. Price. Jia Yan gently inserted his mouthparts into the magma. Nice taste. The extremely hot magma was actually absorbed into the body under the mouthparts of the big mosquito. He also gave a pleasant feeling of satisfaction. If any earthlings saw it, they would definitely be stunned. A human being would be able to swim and run as far as magma. But this big mosquito, at this moment, treats this magma like a human sucking juice. Yes, he drank it. He doesn't even need a straw, his mouth part is his natural straw. Jia Yan is really not afraid of such a little temperature. You know, when he was on Mars, he was directly soaked in magma and had no fear of the temperature of the flames. When the magma reached his organs, a substance similar to congealed liquid appeared in his organs. Their appearance is very strange, as if they were originally in the organs, waiting for other substances to appear so that they can devour them. This is what Jia Yan only knew before. One of the main strengths of evolutionary beasts is that no matter how they devour evolution, if each one has a mouth, then the most effective way for them to devour it is to use their own swallowing substances directly through the mouth is simply the most effective way. The same was true for Jia Yan. After swallowing the magma, he felt as if there was a kind of comfort in his organs that came from drinking coke in the human period. It made him moan in pleasure involuntarily. And just after he swallowed the magma, his internal organs began to work. They quickly decomposed the energy in the magma and transported it to all aspects of the body. All the organs that had been exhausted finally had some vitality to burst out. This made Jia Yan swallow all the magma faster. After drinking the entire bucket, he was still a little unfinished. The energy contained in this bit of magma is simply insignificant to Jia Yan in his peak state. But in its current state, it is already an extremely powerful supplement. It seems that after recovering some energy, I must go to this volcano. Jia Yan returned to the taste. He began to use other supplies in one go. In fact, there was also a kind of magical underground water in the liquid. This water source was not from this planet, but a specialty from another place in the Sulf star field, but it contained in fact, the energy is not much, but it is similar to a famous tea, but it is still collected by the Kudi tantalum people. After Jia Yan absorbed the energy of these liquids, he finally felt that he had a trace of energy in his thirsty body. Good. We're not in that exhausted state anymore. Jia Yan looked at his body with some joy. At this time, he had a very strange idea, that is, if he had some powerful substances at this time, there was a slight possibility that he would mutate at this time. This means that after such a long time, Jia Yan finally has a strong foundation again and has a mutated foundation. However, this feeling is not strong yet. Jia Yan estimates that when he slowly collects energy and returns to his peak, he can try mutation. Yeah. That's right. Just follow these steps. When I return to my peak condition, I will go to the planet near the star to see if the so-called Chaos Stone can help me with mutation. After Jia Yan conceived the future path, those materials also began to be digested. This process lasted for a long time. In the camp of the Kudatan people, the famous Kudatan people were entangled together, and they held a brief meeting. Elder Halola, do you think this mosquito-riding monster is worth our help? If he is not as powerful as we imagined, or if he simply cannot repay us, wouldn't it cost such a high price? Nothing gained. A middle-aged man asked worriedly as he looked at an old man who advocated helping Jia Yan. What do you know? From my understanding, he is not like this. And even if we don't help him, we don't have much supplies now. The Lord is counting our things every day. If we don't want to think of a way, there is no need. In 2 years, we will be removed from Tianlong Star. After the old man said these words, every Minkudi Tantalum man fell silent. They didn't know their situation, but they were just unwilling to face it. But are we too optimistic to risk him? Even if this monster is willing to help us, no one knows what his strength is. You know, he was killed by a single blow from the Forest Lord that day. After fighting like this, if he can't even defeat the Lord, let alone those powerful heavenly dragons behind the Lord. Oh, I don't know that this monster may not be as powerful as expected, but now we can only take a gamble. We don't have much time. After the old man said this, the entire meeting became even more silent and depressed. This group of Kudi Tantalum people have been living on Tianlong planet for some time, but they found that living on this planet is definitely not the kind of freedom they want. The materials they brought out from civilization have been confiscated time and time again, and deprived of them in various names. If this continues, they will surely perish within a few years. The old man saw that all of these people were very pessimistic, so he reluctantly offered words of comfort. Don't be too pessimistic. No matter what else, I think this monster has something to do with our riding mosquitoes. Although for hundreds of thousands of years, we have cultivated riding mosquitoes from the creatures brought by our ancestors, I've seen species similar to the riding mosquitoes, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. Now that this monster sees us and is friendly to the riding mosquitoes, it must have a better impression of our clan. The direction of the meeting soon moved to other aspects. Each Kudi Tantalum person expressed his or her own opinions, and some even started singing and dancing. During this period, what is most needed is entertainment projects to increase morale. Sensing that they had started an entertainment project, Jia Yan, who was still digesting it, withdrew his brainwave power to monitor them. Maybe the other party knew that he was spying, right? Jia Yan understood a little in his heart, but it seemed that they really had no objections. For such a race, seizing any opportunity to survive is what they are born to do. Jia Yan's display of strength was not enough, but he had already made them make such a huge sacrifice. If they saw that Jia Yan would be a more powerful being, wouldn't they be more loyal to Jia Yan? Jia Yan doesn't even think about these things anymore. If he can restore his energy, it will be easy for him to protect such an unrelated race. It will take a few days for my brainwave power to recover. It will also take a few days for my physical power to digest these external forces. Then let's take action in a few days. Jia Yan thought about this, and then he crawled down directly in the hall. In the nearby forest, powerful creatures and races were all discussing. Sure enough, the Kudatan people still have some heritage from the past. This cunning race absolutely concealed their heritage when they first entered the planet. Their property. This race is so bad. They actually bought so many things in one go. They definitely still have a lot of money. I suggest that we destroy their camp tomorrow. In this case, the adults will not say anything. And we can also share some of the money seized. That's right, this race is just a remnant of a race that is not more powerful than the early stage of heaven level. If our race attacks them in the past, we will definitely be able to capture them with ease. In a dense place, a monster flying like a dragonfly made bursts of noise. Tianlong Star is originally a fighting planet. Those strong people don't care about the fighting everywhere. They are not talented in managing the planet. In addition, they are now said to be occupying this planet, but in this star field, the strong ones don't care. It is normal for the wanderers to wander. They have occupied this place for a period of time. If other strong men come and drive them away, wouldn't their efforts in managing this planet be in vain? So these strong men just let the creatures on the planet continue to fight, and they are frantically grabbing the resources and property on the planet. Jia Yan is still digesting it. The power of the evolved beast generation is shown in the fact that each of them absorbs energy with astonishing efficiency. But Jia Yan is already strong enough. Even if he is an evolved beast that absorbs energy at an astonishing speed, it will inevitably be a little slow to absorb energy at this time. Now, if he wants to digest those strands of various powers, it will not take much time. Not short. Although those solid substances contain a lot of energy, they cannot be absorbed directly into the body, so Jia Yan just spread them on the ground, and then he lay on them, and a faint mutated condensate flowed out, absorbing them. Those substances melted and then entered Jia Yan's body. This kind of digestion is not slow. Just when Jia Yan wanted to slowly continue to enjoy the energy surge that he had not enjoyed for a long time, his eyes suddenly moved. A wave of creatures are flying towards here? And among them, there are strong men exuding mid-level heaven-level energy. There was thought in Jia Yan's eyes. Then he felt a smile directly in his mind. It seems that this Kudi Tantalum man is indeed in a bad situation. In this case, my first sincerity will be shown to you first. Thinking of this, Jia Yan's huge body slowly stood up. For the first time in so many days, he walked outside the lobby of this building. At this time, the Kudi Tantalum camp was in chaos. Although the Kudi Tantalum people are not powerful, this does not mean that their technological power is not powerful as well. Their detectors had already detected the enemy's approach dozens of kilometers away. Elder Harola, it was all your idea. Now that the Flow tribe has seen our wealth, they want to come and loot it. What should we do now? Yes, I just sent a message to Lord's guards, but they ignored me at all. Lord will not care about these things, not to mention that he doesn't want to offend the Flow clan easily. What to do? The Flow clan will be here soon. It won't take more than 10 minutes at most. The entire camp of the Kudi Tan people has been in chaos. Each of them has received information about the enemy's invasion. Regarding the war, the Kudi Tan people have always been bullied in this area. Naturally, at this time extremely nervous. Meowbai, **ge. Huh? This is it? At this moment when everyone in the famous library was extremely scheming. Suddenly, a state appeared on the radar that they couldn't believe. Over there dozens of kilometers away, a large battle explosion suddenly occurred. And this kind of explosion is getting more and more intense. They clearly saw nothing in their radar, but the invading enemies disappeared one by one and disappeared from the radar. The new book Super Evolution and Mutation will be recommended on the website tomorrow. 2 updates will start tomorrow, please save it. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 536. Chapter 536. My computer, which was good at coding, had a problem. It took me a long time to figure it out. Now I am using the PE system to publish chapters. This system does not have the input method I am used to, so I cannot code. Please take a day off. Bulletin U finally asked for a leave when it was almost a year after starting the book. Wu Duanzheng's golden body was broken depressed. I will definitely fix the computer tomorrow. I hope everyone understands. Thank you. To be continued. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 537. What's going on? Could it be? The Kudi Tantalum Elder, also known as Elder Harola, suddenly seemed to remember something. Tang Tankai, go and see if Master Jia Yan is still in his lounge. Tang Tangzi, who was also a little shocked on the side, seemed to have just recovered from the shock. He quickly agreed, and then ran towards the hall where Jia Yan was. Elder. Lord Jia Yan is indeed gone. Not long after, Tang Tangzi's voice was transmitted to Elder Halola's communicator through the communicator. Really? Elder Halola's eyes flashed suddenly. He is actually an adult. How did he do it? Even our warning radar didn't react at all. Such a big body could disappear quietly under the attention of so many of us. He had a feeling. A feeling of disbelief. Previously, this wise man from Kudatan felt that Big Mosquito was not an ordinary person, but no matter how much he thought about it, he could only think of this strong man. If he could sit in their Kudatan camp, they would spend a lot of time in the future. Some of the hidden belongings were communicated with the Tianlong strongman to cancel the dispute between Jia Yan and the Forest Lord. In that case, a powerful strongman might appear in their camp. But he never imagined that this strong man would be such a terrifying existence. No. There are 3 heaven-level experts from the Flow clan. Not only that, they also have some powerful technological weapons. If you are not careful, you can kill even a peak heaven-level person. Master Jia Yan seems to be injured. It's not healed yet, if something unexpected happens. Thinking of this, Elder Harola wanted to issue an order to dispatch the only strongest combat power in the clan, which is a heaven-level armor. But just when he wanted to say something, "Chief, Elder. This. The monitor who spoke had a somewhat shocked expression with a sense of disbelief. "I can't speak clearly." "Get out of my way," Elder Harola pushed away the monitor angrily. He had a gloomy thought in his heart, that is, looking at the monitor's expression, something so shocking might happen. It was Master Jia Yan who went into the battle with a serious injury. He might have died. Then the investment made by the Tantalum people in their library will be completely wasted. His eyes flicked to the screen. But the next moment, Elder Harola's eyes widened in disbelief as well. This. It turned out that on the screen in front of him, the light spots representing the life breath of each enemy had completely disappeared at this time. Impossible. Could it be? Elder Harola had a look of surprise on his face. He thought of an expression of disbelief. Could it be that these invading enemies were all wiped out by Lord Jia Yan? While he was still in shock, he heard another burst of people's noise. Elder Harola quickly turned his gaze over. "I saw those tribesmen," pointing at a huge figure one by one, slowly descending. Harola also looked at the huge figure, and then saw that figure without even saying hello, walking towards her own hall, entering it, and the door was tightly closed. Jia Yan seemed to have done a trivial thing. This. Harola looked at the camp building where Jia Yan existed in astonishment, a little unbelievable at this time. He knew that Jia Yan might be powerful, but he was still an injured body after all. But with this body, this strong man still fought, and even achieved results that surprised them all. Those enemies who completely disappeared from the radar were definitely killed by this strong man. This is simply incredible. Not to mention the reaction of this elder, nor the reaction of other Kudi Tantalum people, just that after Jia Yan entered the hall, he crawled down on the bed full of energy ores, a little surprised. Achieving such a result may be a terrible harvest in the eyes of the Kudi Tantalum people, but to him, it is simply a normal thing. But there are still some things that surprise Jia Yan. This is the first time Jia Yan has faced those creatures in this star field. Don't say that you are not familiar with things that may lead to losing. After all, Jia Yan's own strength is there, and the energy fluctuations emitted by the opponent are just some guys around the heaven level. However, Jia Yan still found here is the same as before. There is something different about the Hercules arm where it is located. The first is the understanding and mastery of energy. There is a world of difference between the two. When Jia Yan was in the immortal arm before, he himself was a being who had a rough understanding of energy, but the other strong men were not much different. Even after a little training, Jia Yan was able to can reach the same level as other strong people. It can be seen that in Yingxian arm, the energy for strong people varies from person to person, and there is not even any system. But it's different here. Before he fought those monsters that looked like mantis men, he found that their fighting power was exactly the same. Their combat strength also far exceeds that of other strong men of the same level in the immortal arm. A guy in the middle of the heaven level can even explode with combat power that can only be unleashed by a peak heaven level powerhouse in the gray-yellow star. Although it was still inevitable to be crowned under Jia Yan's crushing strength, Jia Yan still became wary of this so-called prosperous star field because of the opponent's extremely powerful combat power. This is indeed, as Oro said, an extremely prosperous place. Even those opposite sex races just now, if they use the powerful technological weapons they carry, who is now a little weak, may not be able to quickly deal with them. Thinking of this, Jia Yan thought about the well-known heavenly dragon powerful man on this planet. And the more mysterious space mercenaries are also more fearful. Even the mantis race is fearful of these strong men and considers them their rulers. This shows that these two strong men are definitely not that simple. At this time, the Kudi Tantalum people have more confidence in the existence of Jiayan. This kind of thing has nothing to do with whether Jiayan can compete with the strongest people in Tianlong Star, but because they originally had no regard for Jiayan. Yan didn't have high hopes. And now the performance of Big Mosquito has definitely exceeded their expectations. When they saw hope, they naturally became more enthusiastic. Now everything depends on the reaction of the so-called Lord. Jia Yan analyzed the current situation, looking at the scenery in the hall with a sparkling look in his eyes. The next day soon came. The Kudi Tantalum people are very discerning. At this time, for Jia Yan, a strong man, they are all similar to the people on Earth, but their technological capabilities and combat effectiveness are still far superior to those on Earth, so it is still slightly better to treat them as subordinates than the people on Earth. Of course, it is impossible for Jia Yan to stay in one place for too long like he did on the Earth and the gray-yellow star. He is just settling now. This kind of precipitation is not only the recovery of strength, but also an understanding and analysis of the environment. If he slowly learns more about these star fields, as well as the knowledge and environment of the strong people here, a more ambitious step in evolution will unfold in this star field. As soon as it got dark, Elder Harola came to Jia Yan. "Sir, we have tidied up the battlefield, but the Lord sent someone over to ask about the situation of the battle. How should we deal with it?" Elder Harola looked at Jia Yan with a strong sense of fear in his eyes. "What's their attitude?" Jia Yan looked at the face of Elder Harola. This Kudi Tantalum man who looked to be in his 70s or 80s had bulging blood marks on his cheeks. He thought he must have experienced some things before coming here. Bad things. Their attitude? Harola was hesitant. He looked at Jia Yan, wondering if this gentleman would fight against the powerful Lord for the sake of the Kudi Tantalum people. If the true strength of this strong man is as strong as what he showed last night, then he will definitely be able to fight the Lord head-on, and may even be slightly better. But the Lord is not alone. He also possesses powerful technological weapons. If these things are used, it will not be so easy for Jia Yan to deal with him. So Harola was a little hesitant to say what the other party said directly. "Tell me, what did they say?" At this moment, Jia Yan's eyes flashed with fierce flames. In a strange star field, thousands of miles away from the Earth, and it has nothing to do with him, so Jia Yan can show his cold-blooded nature without any scruples. Don't doubt Big Mosquito's current mentality. He can kill anyone who dares to hinder his existence, even the Kudi Tantalum people who have a cooperative relationship with him. They said, "Lord, I already know about your existence." He conveyed his goodwill, saying that it was just a misunderstanding before, and he hopes that you will join him and the position will not be low. After saying this, the Kudi Tantalum man the elder looked at Jia Yan and hesitated. Seeing his expression and the blood stains on his face, Jia Yan naturally knew that things would not be that simple. He suddenly laughed a little. This so-called Lord had a very good idea. If he went, not to mention whether there will be danger, even if not, he must have a way to control himself, right? But will Jia Yan go? Impossible. Let's not talk about this matter, Jia Yan said calmly. After that, his eyes became a little cold. After my understanding in the past few days, it seems that the position of Lord in Tianlong Star is not that simple. Even ordinary lords are unlikely to be protected by those powerful Tianlongs. Tell me, if I want to become as a lord, what needs to be done? You want to become a lord? Harola looked at Jia Yan in surprise. Seeing a cold light flashing in his huge compound eyes, he vaguely guessed what the other party was thinking, and quickly lowered his head, even more be respectful. "Sir, there are several ways to become a lord. The first is to pass the assessment of the powerful Tianlongs, or if you have some powerful abilities, you will get the support of the powerful Tianlongs and become a lord. The second is to apply for a lord battle with the powerful Tianlong. As the name suggests, this means fighting the previous lord, and the winner is the Lord. However, the party applying needs to provide a reason for fighting, and it needs to guarantee that it will fight against Tianlong in the future. A strong person must be loyal, otherwise, not only will it not be approved, but it may also lead to the killing of a powerful heavenly dragon. The third type is approved by those seemingly more mysterious cosmic mercenaries. Their words seem to be more effective than those of the Tianlong people, because none of the lords they appointed have yet been defeated by powerful people. There is a fourth kind. Harola wanted to continue talking, but Jia Yan had interrupted him before that. Because the detailed information Jia Yan wanted has been obtained. No need to go on, just go and see how I applied for a lord battle with this forest lord. As for the reason, you can think of it. I hope you won't disappoint me. Although he had expected it for a long time, Harola still couldn't believe it when Jia Yan said these words himself. He looked at Jia Yan and seemed a little stunned for a moment, but after all, he was an experienced person. He quickly nodded in agreement with a happy face. Okay, sir, we will definitely live up to your important mission. After he finished speaking, with Jia Yan's agreement, he quickly walked towards the outside world. I think he will still be a little busy in the future. After all, this is an opportunity for their Kuti Tantalum people to truly rise. You must know that if a race can be related to a lord-level strongman, then this race will definitely benefit a lot. At least it will not be like the Kuti Tantalum people now. They are not allowed to go out even if they live in the corner of the forest. Not to mention obtaining food and other supplies requires a large annual contribution. As for whether Jia Yan can win, Harola didn't think about this at all. Now that this adult has brought it up, he is absolutely sure. After all, Jia Yan is still an extremely mysterious strong man in his heart. Even if he does not win, he will not fail too badly. As long as he can save his life, when the time comes, the Kuti Tantalum people will have a man who can fight with the lords. If they are strong, then their status will definitely be improved a lot. After he left, Jia Yan's huge body crawling in the hall made a slightly strange sound in the darkness. It's impossible to dodge anyway. In this case, I'll confront him head on. It can be considered as repaying the revenge of the previous blow. Thinking of the attack that the so-called Lord had made on him when his body was exhausted and he had almost no strength, an inexplicable light flashed through Jia Yan's compound eyes that were already shining with darkness. However, the opponent's strength ranges from a peak sky-level strongman on the immortal arm to a starry sky-level strongman. Now, if I want to deal with it, I may still have a little trouble. Since my existence has been exposed, and it seems that the beings on this planet don't pay much attention to my appearance, then I can still go out and do some things. Jia Yan thought of the volcanic magma. In Yingxian arm, a strong man like Jia Yan who appears suddenly, even if he is not very powerful, will definitely attract the attention of many parties. However, in this starry sky, no one seems to care about where Jia Yan comes from. Yes, no strong person would set his sights on such a little person who might just be a heaven-level person. /U003E. After understanding this, Jia Yan could finally be sure that if he went out, it would only require a little trouble in terms of his identity, but it would not be a big deal. Listen to me, this is the Lord War that our Lord Jia Yan applied to the Lord. The reason is that the Lord exploited us too much. A few days ago, a child was directly starved to death because of your restrictive policy. Such a thing is simply outrageous, so Master Jia Yan wants to speak out for us after knowing our story. Now he has applied for the Lord War. We have sent the same information to the headquarters of Tianlong Powerhouse through the transmitter. One copy has been sent, please wait for the approval from above. Tangzi felt a little relieved as he threw the intellectual data file in his hand onto a monster that looked like a pig-headed man. He has always been looked down upon, ridiculed, and even exploited time and again by the monitors in front of him. Now he can finally feel proud in front of them. You must know that he had begged for a long time to get this job from Elder Harola. The two pig-headed creatures, about 2.5 meters tall, looked at Tangsa strangely. They were not weak in intelligence, but at this moment, they actually couldn't understand what the other party was saying. You mean, the so-called Lord Jia Yan launched a lord war against our lord? He is stupid. One of the pig-headed men picked up the small brain on the ground and found that it was indeed an explanation of the Lord War. Immediately jumped to his feet. Ha, this fool, when we conveyed the Lord's news a few days ago and wanted to invite him, we thought he was some kind of extraordinary being. Now it seems that he is just a fool. Unexpectedly, he was the Lord, almost died with one blow, but he still dares to start a Lord war with the Lord. He is simply looking for death. When the two pig-headed men saw the reason for their application, they found that it was to help the Kudi Tantalum people seek justice. There was also a child who was not sure whether he was really dead or not, and they used it as a moral high ground. So this Lord War was absolutely it's possible to turn it on. So they were all laughing at the so-called Lord Jia Yan for overestimating his abilities. The Lord they serve is a strong man who has taken root in this forest 10 years ago. He has encountered 3 lords and opponents in total, but every time, he was killed by the Lord. The so-called Master Jia Yan couldn't even block the Lord's move at that time, and he would definitely end up with the same fate this time. The battle with visible results is still going on. This is not a fool. Who is a fool? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 538. The scolding battle between Tangzi and several of the Lord's men soon spread in the Kudi Tantalum camp. However, his actions did not arouse opposition among the Kudi Tantalum people. On the contrary, many people supported him. They have been bullied a lot, and now that they have broken things off, they naturally want to vent. Looking at the subordinates of the lords who used to boss them around, and now seeing that although they were still scolding, they did not dare to say anything else, these famous Kudi people felt excited in their hearts. In the past, the subordinates of these lords would either scold or beat them when they saw them. How could they feel so timid? Anyway, they have already boarded the big ship called Giant Mosquito, and they have no way to turn back, so they simply do it more thoroughly. Some Kudi Tantalum people really took a fancy to Jia Yan, the big mosquito. Everything he said would be fulfilled. In fact, Jia Yan didn't really want much. It was just that at this time, he asked for some substances that contained powerful energy. In fact, these Kudi Tan people still don't know much about the body constitution of the big mosquito. Jia Yan has not even found a similar description of an evolved beast in the classics. They have no idea that Jia Yan, a monster and strong man, is even a powerful being who can repair energy by using the right energy substances. Jia Yan's request is not easy to meet. The status of the Kudatan people on this planet is really too low. In other words, they have a low status in the entire starry sky. A wandering race is inherently equivalent to a weakling or even a slave to other civilizations or strong people. Elder, we really can't think of finding a more powerful energy substance. On this day, the Kudi Tantalum people who were waiting for the reply from the strong Tianlong gathered together, and they all had grim faces. Jia Yan hoped that they would try their best to find energy substances, but after searching, they found that they were either not suitable or could not find any good ones at all. As a result, time was approaching quickly, and they still didn't get anything that could help Lord Jia Yan. No. The materials we collected are too few. Although Mr. Jia Yan needs these things, I don't know what to do with them, but I know that these things are very important to him and may even involve his recovery of energy, so we must find something adults can use. Elder Halula's expression was a little cloudy at this time. At this time, Jia Yan's position in their Kudi Tantalum camp was becoming more and more important. Although this was arranged by him, Halula felt that he could not control it. Especially since they can't even do the things arranged by this adult. In this case, if the other party feels that they are not careful, even if they win, whether they will continue to be so good to their Kudi Tantalum people is another matter. No, let's take that thing to the adults. This. Thinking of that thing, Harola suddenly fell silent. Not long after, the big mosquito was in the hall. Looking at the things in front of him, Jia Yan felt a little strange. He asked these Kudi Tantalum people to find some energy substances, but considering the status of the Kudi Tantalum people, he didn't have high hopes. Just because the other party was considered to be the most useful group of people among his subordinates, he just talked about his troubles casually. But I didn't expect that the other party seemed to come up with something really good. But looking at Harola standing in front of him with a look of pain, he knew that this thing might be a very important thing to the Kudi Tantalum people. Jia Yan turned his attention to what Harola had sent. I saw this thing, which looked like it was wrapped in transparent glass. It was round in shape and had a diameter of about 1 meter. There was gurgling red liquid inside, rippling slightly. Jia Yan can sense that the energy contained in it is actually extraordinary, even exceeding the so-called magma energy, and may even exceed the star condensate he used before. Only the purple crystal taken out of the god can be compared with it. Such a terrifying thing, if used properly, would even be helpful to his mutation this time. How did the Kudi Tantalum people come from? Harola smiled, and then said respectfully, Sir, this is the only armored mecha in our camp that can slightly intimidate the Lord's forces. We didn't think before that it might be harmful to you, sir. It's good, someone mentioned it before, so I brought it to show the adults. Armored mecha? Is this its energy? Although it does seem to be of great help to me, without it, wouldn't your armored mecha be unable to operate? Jia Yan asked a little strangely. Yes, but your lord's affairs should come first. If your lord loses, even if we have all this energy, it will be of no use. Our armor is only a little bit scary to your lord. If it really fights, even if it self-destructs, it is impossible to cause much damage to the lord. After hearing this, Jia Yan felt a little moved in his heart. He also knew the armor of the Kudi Tantalum people. This was the greatest security guarantee that the Kudi Tantalum people could barely survive in this forest. If even this armor, if all the pretended energy was given to him, it means that they left no room for anything. They believed in Jia Yan wholeheartedly and put all their bets on him. Don't worry, I will definitely win. Jia Yan didn't say anything else, let alone refuse. He knew that he couldn't refuse. Harola smiled, as if after hearing Jia Yan's words, she felt relieved about losing the powerful security of armor. Now they no longer have any top-level combat power, but the armor is only equivalent to the early stage of heaven level. If they self-destruct, they can threaten the Lord, but it is impossible to kill them. And using this weapon to win the favor of a strong man who may surpass the Lord, this may not be a bad thing for the Kudi Tantalum people. After Harola left, Jia Yan turned his attention to the glass thing in front of him. Through the induction of his own biological organs, Jia Yan was able to know that the terrifying energy contained in it even made him want to move. Well, since I owe someone a favor, I can just repay them in the future. Without much thought, Jia Yan pressed a button that Harola had told him before. After that, a piece of glass gently opened on the surface of the glass ball. The red liquid inside quickly swirled in the air. But Jia Yan didn't wait too long, as some weird energy appeared in the air. His sharp mouthparts were already making a slight sound. He spat out his needle and pierced it directly into the glass. Gurgling. A little bit of sucking sound resounded in the hall. What can be seen with the naked eye is that at the front of Jia Yan's needle, there are streams of liquid slowly rushing into his mouthparts, and then being swallowed by the mouthparts into his internal organs. Happy. It is indeed the energy used by powerful weapons. Jia Yan thinks that the purity of this energy may be much higher than the high purity energy used by those immortal arm battleships. Comfortable. 1 meter square of energy. This may be the first time I have enjoyed such a huge and powerful energy since my rebirth. It's a pity that now is not the time to mutate, otherwise, it may be of some help. Jia Yan absorbed all the energy in one breath, but still had some unfinished thoughts. His favorable impression of the Kudi Tantalum people became even stronger. At the same time, the energy in his body also underwent a strange change, that is, it was washed with such high purity energy, and the energy in his abdominal cavity had a violent boiling feeling at this moment. At this moment, Jia Yan was already prepared for the surge of energy in his belly, and he immediately crawled down. He was quietly feeling the energy changes in his body, and at the same time, he used his ability to master energy that he had developed over a long period of time to control and guide the energy in his body. The parts that should be restored first will be restored first, and the parts that should not be restored first will be discussed later. These red liquid energies are not magic medicine. Jia Yan is no longer the kind of being who can mutate using some powerful energy. His current body, let alone mutation, even if he wanted to restore energy, it would not be possible with such energy. If he wants to completely restore his energy, Jia Yan estimates that his body must be soaked in a red liquid as big as the hall to have any chance of recovery. Fortunately, having this energy is also an extremely important recovery possibility for Jia Yan, whose body is dry. It's like a timely rain or a helping hand in the snow. With the initial recovery of these energies, his combat effectiveness has been greatly restored again. Time went very quickly, I read it in 2 days. Elder, the powerful Tianlong has come to reply. They agreed to the Lord battle, but the time is limited to 2 days. Elder, please inform Master Jia Yan quickly. A Kudi Tantalum man went crazy and rushed towards Halola, who was discussing matters with others. What? Halola stood up, and even the Kudi Tantalum drink she was drinking spilled directly onto the ground. But everyone present didn't care about this anymore. They were all paying attention to the young man who came to report the news. Yes, the letter is here. The young man quickly picked up his small brain and gave it to Harola to look at. After looking at it for a while, Harola's expression changed drastically. Quick! Inform the Lord, this must be something the Lord has done. The time limit is 2 days. If he hides, he is unlikely to be found even if he searches for 2 days. But I think the Lord will not do this. He just wants to catch Lord Jia Yan off guard. And when they really fight, if the strength is about the same, it won't take more than 2 days. There have been strong men at the peak of the sky who have fought for a year or two without a result. Let's go. Go find Master Jia Yan. A group of Kudi Tantalum people hurriedly headed towards the hall where Jia Yan was. And there, Tanger Tankai was still playing games outside the hall door in a very leisurely manner, while guarding Jia Yan inside. For some reason, this young man seemed to be very suitable to Jia Yan's appetite, so Kudi the Tantalum people gave him the job of guarding Jia Yan. Elder Harola, you are here. Just when Tanger Tankai was having fun, his sharp eyes spotted Harola and others walking towards them quickly, and he immediately stopped his movements, looking very loyal to his duties. Quickly, do you allow Mr. Jia Yan to receive you now? If so, we have an emergency to come in. Halola ignored Tanger Tang's previous dereliction of duty and asked directly at this time. Seeing that he was so nervous, Tanger Tankai knew that something big had happened, but Jia Yan had told him before that if he hadn't been notified that he was coming out of seclusion, nothing would have allowed anyone else to enter. You know, Jia Yan is restoring energy, and this kind of thing can be big or small. If something goes wrong, casualties may occur. That's why there are these commands. Tanger Tankai said with some difficulty, Elder, my lord said that he is in seclusion, but he hasn't informed me yet that he can meet anyone. In this way, it is impossible to enter. In fact, Jia Yan also arranged his brainwave power at the entrance of the hall. No one can enter without exceeding his power. This. What to do? Harola stood there nervously, spinning around. They were waiting here anxiously, and all the Kudi Tantalum people also got the news. Everyone was very shocked. They knew that Jia Yan wanted to challenge the Lord, but no one thought that the powerful Tianlong, who had always not cared so much about Lord battles, was actually bribed by the Lord. If the time limit is 2 days, then it needs to be tightened up. But everyone discovered that several high-level officials of the Kudi Tan people were walking around outside Lord Jia Yan's hall, but they could not see the powerful man Jia Yan. They also became nervous. Every Kudi Tantalum person knows that if Jia Yan fails to win this time, the Kudi Tantalum people who have bet everything on Jia Yan will not have a chance to turn around. The terrifying being who has become the Lord again will carry out bloody revenge on the Kudi Tantalum people. But Master Jia Yan still didn't show up at this time. There are only 2 days. If the time limit is exceeded, even if Master Jia Yan is really stronger than the Lord, it will be useless. They dare not tell Lord Jia Yan to disobey the order of the powerful Tianlong and kill the Lord, because that will attract the powerful Tianlong to take action himself. On this planet, except for a few cosmic mercenaries, there is no way the strong can compete with them. It's over. 1 day has passed. The Lord still hasn't appeared. Even if he appears now, it will take a while to get to the Lord. Plus fighting, it may not be enough time. As the day passed, some Kudi Tantalum people finally showed expressions of despair. Harola, on the other hand, didn't look so anxious. She just kept walking uneasily at the door of the hall. Finally, time passed again, and it was the afternoon of the last day. The time is in the evening, that is, there are only a few hours left. A man named Kudi Tan turned pale at this time. At this time, some of them already thought that their future was doomed. And Halola, who had always been calm, finally couldn't sit still at this moment. He came outside the hall of Jia Yan's house and mustered up his courage. I want to knock on the door directly. But the moment he knocked, the door opened automatically. Why are you here? While they all looked inside in shock, Jia Yan's magnetic voice asked with a hint of surprise. All the people in Kudi were a little shocked when they looked at the big mosquito inside the hall. The big mosquito was still the same big mosquito, but the feeling he gave to the Kudi Tantalum people at this time was no longer like that. Jia Yan, whose energy had been exhausted before, was still a figure that even though they couldn't see through, they could still sense his real existence. But now, Jia Yan has an ethereal look, a mysterious and unpredictable demeanor, permeating around his body. It obviously has a different meaning than before. Harola was also extremely surprised. Master Jia Yan had said before that he was a strong man who had lost his energy. This kind of thing was very common among strong men, so he believed it. But no matter how he thought about it, he didn't think that Jia Yan would be a starry sky level powerhouse. But now that this inexplicable magnanimity appeared, he was suddenly shocked and a little doubtful whether the big mosquito was a starry sky level. But the shock only lasted for a moment. A fatal matter is imminent, and it is up to this strong man to solve it. Sir, the approval has already come from the Tianlong experts. But their requirements are too harsh, he said loudly. Oh? What kind of harsh method? Jia Yan asked lazily. Although a Minkudi Tantalum man was so anxious, for him, he had just used the red energy at this time, and his body finally recovered a lot of energy. The moment when he was in good condition was the most comfortable moment. Time. Halola directly took out her brain. He rushed to Jia Yan anxiously and showed the display in Ji's mind to Jia Yan for viewing. Thanks to Jia Yan's strong learning ability, at this time, he has roughly mastered the characters in this star field, as well as another language different from the Kudi Tantalum language. Jia Yan just looked at the screen lazily at first, but soon he became energetic. Huh? In 2 days. What time is it now? He asked with some surprise. As for those powerful heavenly dragons, Jia Yan now doesn't want to directly rebel against them, so he wants to abide by the things they set down as much as possible. It's said to be 2 days, so what time is it now? Sir, it's been more than half the day now. It may take only 2 or 3 hours to. The Lord is now deliberately staying in the castle farthest from us, more than 1,000 years away from here. Kilometers, the time to get there is endless, and with the fighting, it may be too late. Halola shook her head sadly and sighed. But don't wait until he finishes saying this. Whirring. Everyone just felt that their body, which was blocked in front of the hall door, was quickly sent out of the hall by a gentle force. Before they could react, everyone felt that a huge creature was rushing out in front of them. Then their vision dimmed. That huge thing actually soared into the sky. Don't worry, I'll be back as soon as the time comes, Jia Yan's melodious voice came back. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 539. That stupid monster thought I would really give him a fair fight. Look, he didn't even have time to react, so I win. This is a huge building, it is 50 meters high and covers an area of more than 1 kilometer. For humans, this kind of building is simply huge and terrifying, but for a behemoth of Jia Yan's level, this is just the minimum living space. In other words, the big mosquito has never enjoyed such a good living environment since he grew up, and the existence of it living here is simply a mockery. What I saw laughing in the building was a monster that looked over 50 meters tall and extremely bloated. This monster looked like a huge mass of meat piled together. If it weren't for the fact that it had 4 slender arms, and a pair of strong thighs, it is almost impossible to tell that it looks like a living creature. Too fat. His thighs were the source of the extremely powerful jumping power when he attacked Jia Yan before. However, while this monster insulted Jia Yan, it also felt a little regretful. He just figured it out now. The powerful monster that fell from outer space before was definitely in a very seriously injured state. If he had been killed at that time, what would have happened now would not have happened. It's not that he thinks he can't defeat the monster called Lord Jia Yan, but he knows that he alone can destroy the strongest troops of the Filuo clan. He has no confidence that he can kill the opponent without getting hurt. So he used his connections at the Tianlong powerful headquarters to pull off such a 2-day time limit trick. After all, such a thing was enough for him. The name of this monster is Kaz. The surrounding forest he controls is about 1,000 kilometers in diameter. Among them, he has 5 identical palaces, and this is just one of them. That monster has to make at least 1 or 2 mistakes if he wants to find me. I have also told my subordinates that when he arrives, he will stir up trouble. This will slowly delay his time. Continuously when he is tired, it will take at least a lot of effort for him to fly. Even if he can find me at the last moment, his combat effectiveness will be reduced, and then it will be my chance to win easily. Thinking of this, Kaz simply felt that he was a born wise man. If others didn't only see his power, he might have become a member of the think tank of those powerful Tianlongs. If I had more say among the Tianlong people, then my crisis wouldn't have been so troublesome. Thinking about things, Lord Kaz suddenly became a little gloomy. He claimed to have a high IQ, but with the powerful Tianlong, he couldn't enter their center of power. At this time, he couldn't help but feel a little depressed. However, as time passed, Kaz became a little more relaxed. No matter what the right to speak over there, I still relied on these relationships to survive a crisis this time. It seems that guy can't find me. But at this moment, 2 days have completely passed, and there is only less than half an hour left. 1 more hour. Kaz looked at the display on his brain and felt a little excited. He was a little nervous before, but now, he was no longer nervous at all. And that guy hasn't shown up yet, so he must have just given up because he knew he couldn't defeat him. At this moment, A communicator he placed next to him suddenly rang. Here, his heart tightened, and then he picked up the communicator. "Sir. That Jia Yan just came to our place. We spent some time stalling with him, but he seemed to have the ability to detect. After a few words, he used energy to observe our palace and flew away. It turns out it's the Northwest Palace. It doesn't matter. You did a good job. By the way, which direction did she go?" "Lord, we definitely did not tell you where you are. He is going to the Eastern Palace." "Very good, you can come and work in my personal guard from now on." "Thank you, Lord." Listening to the surprised voice of his subordinate on the other end of the communicator, Kaz cut off the communication. He just laughed. That guy took action so late. He must have just gone through the motions. When the time comes, he won't be defeated without a fight. I understand this sentiment. Kaz had an explanation for Jia Yan's late appearance, and then he laughed even more crazily. He originally thought that this guy was a difficult target, but he didn't expect that he was just a person who pretended to be fat. What happened this time was simply a farce. After laughing, the Lord no longer took this matter to heart. Instead, he was thinking about how to break into the powerful Tianlong as soon as possible. If he had a higher status, then this crisis would not be possible at all. Impossible to appear. At this time, the big Mosquito naturally didn't know that Master Kaz actually regarded him as a timid person. He was just flying as fast as he could. After all, time is running out. There was no nervousness in his expression. In fact, even if the battle did not start this time, he had made a decision to kill Lord Kaz in the future. Not to mention the other party's suppression of the Kudi Tantalum people, let's just say that when the sun set on Tianlong Star, this gentleman had taken action against him, so he must die. The majesty of the starry sky level is not so easy to offend. What's more, this guy didn't just offend him, he actually attacked him directly. His subordinates before clearly wouldn't tell me, and I was just wasting my time there. Jia Yan's current flying speed naturally cannot be compared with that at his peak, and there is even a gap between it and when he was still at the peak of the heaven level. It would take a lot of time to see the 5 palaces in an area of 1,000 kilometers one by one. Half an hour passed. Only half an hour left. But Jia Yan only saw 3 palaces. The other party was too cunning. Knowing that he was using energy for detection, he turned on the energy interference in these palaces, which hindered Jia Yan's thermal infrared detection ability. If he hadn't mutated, some of his abilities had also been enhanced. In addition to strong attacks, once inside, there is really no way to quickly get information about whether the other party is in the palace. Only half an hour left. But there are still 2 palaces left. When he flew up from the 3rd palace, Jia Yanyu checked the time and suddenly became a little depressed. But it doesn't matter. Even if it takes me about 10 minutes to do the next 2, I still have time. No matter how unlucky he is, if he finds the 5th one before discovering the existence of the other party, then Jia Yan will definitely have time. He was flying on this planet, looking at the scenery below that was similar to the vast forests on Earth, and suddenly felt that his destiny was very strange. Before he was reborn, or just after he was reborn, he would never have imagined that one day he would start his own battle and fight on a planet that Earthlings could never imagine, or even a place where Earthlings didn't even know there was a living planet. Soar. Destiny is a wonderful thing. Jia Yan's rebirth as a giant mosquito is an arrangement of fate. It was also an arrangement that Jia Yan didn't know whether it was a good thing or not. In the forest below, some trees are similar to those on Earth. They are lush and very beautiful, but some trees are not so beautiful. They are gray and have a terrifying appearance. If an Earthling comes to this planet, regardless of whether he can adapt to the gravity here, even if he can adapt to the environment, he may die quickly if he is left in such a vast forest. To the big mosquito, it is just a forest. To ordinary people on Earth, it is definitely a terrifying space of life and death. But now, the big mosquito can no longer experience the excitement that ordinary people on Earth can experience. Because in the universe, there are very few things that can reach his level. At least on ordinary planets, it is difficult for him to encounter dangerous environments. Whatever you gain, you will lose. This may be the supreme and unchanging law in the universe. Jia Yan flew and approached the next palace. The palace was no different from what he had seen before. This lord, I guess, is a person with no sense of beauty. He built all the palaces to look the same, but their appearance is not very beautiful, which makes this area become vulgar. Jia Yan fell quietly. At this moment, Jia Yan was a little surprised. Because he discovered that after he used his exploration ability, an extremely powerful energy wave suddenly emitted from the palace. It seems that he is not unlucky after all. The real owner is here. And inside the Star Palace, the huge and bloated monster lord also received the communication from his subordinates at this time. He's here? This guy has to put on a lot of pretense, right? A guy who doesn't want to fight wants to meet me at the last moment. Haha, it's just like what he means. I guess we won't launch a full-scale attack. When the time comes, we will delay it until the end of time. He will give me face, and I will give him face. The Lord was quite confident that his guess was correct. If Jia Yan really wanted to fight, why did he start looking for him so late? But this guy doesn't seem to be flying very slowly. Kaz feels that this challenger has some abilities. After all, the opponent is a flying creature. If he were to fly, he would be able to fly in such a short time. It is absolutely impossible to fly such a long distance. Bang! He stood up. His huge and bloated figure made the ground tremble. Although he was only slightly larger than Jia Yan, even Jia Yan's feet were completely beyond the scope of his body when stretched out, but his weight was far beyond his reach. If it exceeds Jia Yan, it might be 10 times heavier. After all, one is a flying creature, and weight loss is an evolutionary instinct, while the other is a strong man running on the ground. It is also a correct decision to gain weight and increase attack power. Bang, 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 bang. Those huge feet stood up with powerful steps and walked toward the outside of the palace. And Jia Yan's huge figure has long been waiting outside the palace with a vast lawn. He looked at his surroundings. Compared with other palaces, there are some differences here, that is, the lawn outside is probably not the intention of the people who designed the palace. Instead, it is very elegant, with birds singing and flowers fragrant, and it is considered a good garden. You came. The huge monster finally walked in front of Jia Yan from the long corridor of the palace. This was the first time that Jia Yan observed the Lord head-on. This strong man had launched an attack on him before. Although Jia Yan was not seriously injured by his attack, it was still somewhat delayed. It was time for him to repair his injuries. At this time, he still felt that this so-called Lord was in existence with gaps. He had a chubby figure, but Jia Yan looked at his thighs that were so thick that they didn't match his body, and thought about the speed with which the opponent attacked and weakened him some time ago. However, he did not have any doubts for a long time. For Jia Yan, this lord was only a heaven-level person, even equivalent to the immortal arm star territory, a strong man between the starry sky level, but for him, still not a very powerful enemy. He just forgot about the other person, looked away, and then responded lightly. I'm here so you can die. Lord Kaz was stunned when he heard what Big Mosquito said. Why don't you agree with his guess? Didn't this guy come here so late just to make things more realistic? Otherwise, if I had come a day earlier, I wouldn't be so pressed for time. Thinking of this, he was immediately convinced that these words must be words for the occasion, and the other party must be trying to put on a good show at this moment. Since you want to act, then I will accompany you. Kaz burst into laughter. If you want to kill me, it depends on whether you have the ability. Come on. Let's have a decisive battle. His pair of thick thighs at the front and back were crossed in an attacking posture, but in fact, his strength was not used to its limit. After 10 minutes of fighting, this boring farce would be over. After that, he didn't want to provoke the Kuti Tantalum man. After all, the other party had the protection of this strong man. He could see that this strong man he is really a strong man who is not much different from him. His thoughts were still focused on how to please the powerful heavenly dragons. As long as he could get into the sight of those powerful people, he would not be interested in giving this small forest lord status to anyone who wanted it. Oh, are you ready? Then. Jia Yan looked at the opponent's moves that were full of flaws, and suddenly felt a cold feeling, shining out from his compound eyes. Die. Suddenly, an earth-shattering explosion burst out from where he was originally. How can it be? Lord Kaz's tiny eyes shone with a gleam of horror. The opponent's attack was so fast that even he couldn't see it clearly. Didn't we agree to act? Why are you taking it so seriously? His body tensed up, and this idea came to him crazily in his heart. After. Bang. A terrifying attack had landed on his bloated figure. Jia Yan's eyes filled with strange luster looked at Lord Kaz who was being attacked by him, with something strange in his expression. His attack was actually not as powerful as it is now, but before, he thought that this so-called lord could take his attack, but he didn't expect that he could succeed so easily. Could it be that it has something to do with what he said before? But no matter, even if there is no misunderstanding, he can still deal with the existence of this level even if he loses most of his power. Bang! A huge fat object was severely knocked away. On the chest of his body, a forefoot pierced into the muscle and made a gap. Fortunately, the skin was rough and the flesh was thick, so the forefoot narrowly missed piercing it directly. And after this huge monster was knocked away, it continued to rub against the ground, making an earth-shattering sound. A large layer of soil was blown up from the turf on the ground, and the soil was flying. The entire garden was no longer beautiful. Lord Kaz's castration did not stop, but after rubbing the turf, he crashed into his huge palace. Boom! The sky and the earth seemed to level with the thunder, and his body crashed into the palace, making it seem like a nuclear explosion had occurred in the palace. Countless gravels flew up, destroying the surrounding flowers, plants, and trees like bullets. Most of the palace collapsed, which Kaz spent a lot of time collecting. Most of the precious items that I wanted to use to bribe the subordinates of the powerful Tianlong were buried at this time. For a long while, there was no movement at all. Only in the palace, the serving lords and subordinates screamed and groaned one by one. Click. Click, click, click. Finally, a huge, angry body slowly climbed up from the collapsed ground. How dare you destroy my lord's palace? There was a strange and faint anger in Kaz's eyes. There were some blood stains on his bloated body that looked like a stone, which made him look like a terrifying demon. But Jia Yan was not surprised at all. He just made a faint sound. Not only did you destroy your palace, but you will also die today. Asshole! Kaz is crazy. In his eyes, a strange light suddenly appeared. In the past, I just wanted to use my wisdom to get into the sight of the powerful Tianlong. I never thought of using my combat power, but you forced me to do so. Visible to the naked eye, this strong man's legs continue to grow thicker, but the bloat on his body slowly fades away, as if all the energy is transferred to his legs. Jia Yan also looked at the other party's changes strangely. Kaz's brainwave energy momentum unexpectedly skyrocketed in an instant, and then reached an extremely exaggerated level before stopping. Very strong. It is about twice as powerful as before. It's very strong, but... Jia Yan looked at the other person's changed body, feeling solemn, but still at ease in his heart. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 540. But, he is still at the peak of the sky level. Even though he is only a little bit like a layer of fur away from the starry sky level, this is a huge difference. Thinking of this, Jia Yan smiled. Let you see before you die how powerful the real starry sky level is, even if it is a starry sky level that has not recovered its energy. A touch of power emerged from Jia Yan's body. Although this power was far from the level of the current Lord Kaz, in terms of quality, it surpassed the opponent by an unknown amount. This is like a child meeting an adult who, although not as big as a child, is far more pure than him. Can a child beat an adult? Impossible. However, at this time, Nikasa did not seem to be aware of this problem. He just felt the brainwave power emanating from Jia Yan, and a sense of ridicule appeared on his cheeks. His body became extremely solid at this moment, especially his feet, which became even more unique. The knotted muscles in them seemed to be hard metal, which was intimidating. At this time, Jia Yan's body hidden behind the metal armor changed slightly, and it also burst out with energy, and most of the reaction of this energy was absorbed by the armor. This is also one of the functions of armor, which is to absorb most of the energy emitted by the strong, making the opponent paralyzed and careless. When Nikaz saw that the energy fluctuations emitted by Jia Yan were far weaker than his own, he immediately let out an exciting roar. His foot kicked on the ground. Bang! Incredible shock waves emitted from its legs, causing more than half of the palace to collapse. Those subordinates all let out a silent groan. Even those who were not covered by the ruins, they all fainted from the impact of the powerful energy burst out by Kaz. Kaz's legs are indeed an extremely powerful weapon. At this time, his impact has reached an unprecedented level. Perhaps this is the first time he has used such a terrifying fighting method since he faced so many opponents. So this first blow seems to be a little skewed. But at this moment, Jia Yan's eyes were shining. The next moment, he didn't dodge or avoid the opponent's attack at all. Instead, in an instant, he used the same 6 legs to kick forward. The shock wave that also erupted, the mountain roar and the tsunami, completely destroyed the garden behind, and a series of ripples even destroyed a large area of the nearby forest. The two huge figures collided quickly. There was a terrifying silent sound in the air. This kind of sound was not really without any sound, but it seemed that the air could not withstand such a terrifying battle, and it immediately froze in an instant. But the next moment, this silent sound turned into reality, exploding continuously in the air. A faint point of light appeared at the collision point of the battle, and soon the light point exceeded the light of the sun above our heads. In an instant, the world turned into a dazzling color. The moment the shock wave started to shine, it was belatedly arriving. The two huge monsters in the air were still stuck together at this moment. Below the battle, a hole appeared on the ground, and pieces of gravel and flowers were sprayed out in all directions, causing the ground to shake. The two strong men were still confronting each other in the air. Kaz thought that his blow would easily kill the opponent directly, but he did not expect that this opponent was so powerful. His power is clearly not equal to his own, but why? Kaz was a little surprised to find that the sense of power transmitted by the opponent's palms and feet where he collided with the opponent was not at all as strong as his own, but he still could not knock the opponent away. He was confused. How strong is this monster that can use so little power to fight against him? At this moment, during further visits, Kaz finally discovered the culprit. That is, the opponent's power seems to have a faint trace of a strange power that is far beyond the power he controls. This is... Kaz was suddenly shocked. After that, he had a vague guess that he couldn't believe, but as soon as this guess came out, he was directly overturned. Impossible. He looked at the big mosquito in front of him, and his originally narrow eyes gradually widened. After careful experience, he finally realized that the energy emitted by the monster in front of him was actually a battle wave that could only be emitted by a starry sky-level powerhouse. Wherever they come into contact, this power far above him is even more evident. Otherwise, how could it be possible to have a kind of power that was so rare that it could confront him with all his fighting power? You are. Kaz finally couldn't help it and let out a surprised cry. But at this moment, Jia Yan's compound eyes had an inexplicable luster. At this moment, he finally raised his power to the maximum limit that he can use now. He has not yet recovered his full fighting power, and he does not understand the powerful people in this star field. He cannot let Lord Kaz, who clearly sees his strength, reveal his true strength in front of everyone. Ah! Kaz only felt that in the contact area between the two, a power far exceeding his was transmitted. He let out a miserable howl uncontrollably, and the words he wanted to shout were swallowed directly into his stomach. After that, his body seemed to be knocked away and flew back directly. But at this moment, Jia Yan did not give up his attack. The cold color in his compound eyes became more prominent. He moved his body and a black metal shadow shone in the air, and then he caught up with the monster. In a speed competition, even if the opponent uses his thick thighs to bounce, Jia Yan is a real flying creature, how can he lose? Besides, this is not his real speed. Jia Yan's slender front feet finally had a hint of luster under the flickering light. This blue light, under the rapid movement, was not directly extinguished, but left a long blue light and shadow in the sky. But at this time, his speed was too fast. Even if the opponent is knocked away, it is not as fast as his pursuit speed. At this time, Jia Yan finally broke out his peak combat power. The scene in front of him changed, and he saw a huge body flying upside down, magnifying in front of his eyes. He is not used to it at all. This speed is still far behind compared to his peak period. So at this moment, the thrusting forefoot suddenly had a very precise aim, and stabbed hard at Lord Kaz. Stop! At this moment, a sound was transmitted through the communicator worn on Lord Kaz's chest. However, Jia Yan only had a cold look in his eyes, and then his movements did not stop at all, but faintly accelerated. Phew! The sharp front feet pierced Kaz's strong chest. The traces of blue in the front feet made the front feet far sharper than before, and the metal armor wrapped on them also did a good job of covering up the blue light, which came from the secret of his body itself. As for Jia Yan's blow, Kaz's originally hard body actually penetrated directly like a piece of paper. In front, out the back. Weird purple blood spurted out. Jia Yan seemed to have made some strange discoveries at this time. But the matter was not over yet, so he did not conduct research on the matter. As an existence that is infinitely close to the starry sky level, Lord Kaz was rolling on the ground at this time, letting out miserable howls. He may not have been so seriously injured in so many years. Jia Yan's stabbing attack couldn't kill him directly, but it was close. Jia Yan was targeting the place where the heat source was the most powerful in his biological reaction, which was generally an extremely important part. Sure enough, Kaz shouted, and his voice gradually became less loud. Asshole, you dare to disobey my orders, do you know who I am? An angry voice came from the communicator worn by Kaz. Who are you? Jia Yan stood tall next to Kaz's body, looking at the huge figure, gradually losing his breath. The sparkle in his eyes gradually became dull quietly. I am the powerful Tianlong, Lu Baisai, the exclusive slave of Xinrong. Do you know my identity? The mysterious figure roared at this time, seeming to be extremely unhappy that Jia Yan didn't know his identity. Oh, a slave, right? I know, but Kaz and I are fighting freely. Since he failed, he must suffer the consequences of death. Presumably, even if you sue to the powerful Tianlong, this is the reason for my possession. Right? Jia Yan laughed softly. He finally knew who was behind the guy who gave the 2-day deadline. "Bastard, how dare you look down on me?" The guy who called himself Lu Baisai seemed to be even more frustrated and made a sinister voice at this moment. "Your name is Jia Yan, right? Okay, I'll remember you. Since you want to accept Kaz's status, come to the Tianlong domain. When you accept the enfeoffment from the Lord, I will teach you some etiquette that you need to know as a Lord. I hope you will come this morning, haha." After finishing speaking, the voice suddenly disconnected, as if the communication had been closed. Seeing wrong, the powerful Tianlong? And this slave Lu Baisai? Haha, it's really interesting that a slave dares to yell at me like this. Jia Yan stood there, seeming to be laughing at himself. However, after experiencing the incident with the immortal arm, he also knew that a strong man like himself was still a bit unsatisfied in front of a truly powerful existence. Since this planet was the territory of the strong heavenly dragon, he naturally would not have it. Too much back and forth action. But now, he has not made a big mistake. Killing Kaz is also a normal method. Presumably the other party will not embarrass him too much, right? But things are still not good for me. I don't even know what kind of place the so-called Tianlong domain is. And if it goes by, will the other party discover my true strength and take advantage of me before I can regain my combat effectiveness? At that time, it is not certain that I will be eliminated. It seems that before then, we must try our best to restore our combat effectiveness. Jia Yan made a conclusion about the future. He had been looking at Kaz in front of him, who had been pierced by his own blow. This powerful lord who might have been here for a long time had gradually stopped trembling, and his body was gradually lifeless. Okay, then let me try. Jia Yan thought about a strange phenomenon he had discovered before. He looked around and found that there were many of Kaz's subordinates around. Most of them died in the previous battles, but some powerful ones, or trumpeting ones, are still alive. Roll. At this time, Jia Yan made a huge brainwave power sound. You must know that after several mutations, his brainwave power is no longer as weak as it used to be. It is now emitted, carrying the residual power of killing Kaz, which will definitely make all of his subordinates horrified. They all looked here and saw the furious figure of Lord Kaz. Their eyes were horrified, and then they rushed to the side in a hurry. They were all scared. The existence of this strong man actually surpassed their Lord Kaz. The mountain of Kaz has fallen. If they, the Hosens, don't flee now, how long will they wait? Each of them used their fastest speed. Flee around. These subordinates all have some strength, even the weakest ones look like they are in the early stages of the earth level, so those who are not slow will soon lose their voice. Jia Yan watched these beings leave one by one and dragged Kaz's body deep into a remote forest. He used his talent again to check the life aura around him. After he didn't see any intelligent creatures, he cautiously, gently insert his slender needle into Kaz's body that has lost his breath. Squeak, squeak, squeak. A slight sound quickly passed through the air. And a little purple blood also followed the mouth needle and came into Jia Yan's abdominal cavity. And his already dazzling compound eyes became even more dazzling at this moment. Not long after, Kaz's huge body finally became a little shriveled up. And a shadow standing next to him was a little bloated. The big mosquito looked at his body hidden under the metal armor, and became a little excited. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in his eyes, and a layer of joy appeared. I didn't expect that Kaz's blood would be an extremely good source of energy for me. He felt his body replenishing energy faster than the red liquid he had swallowed before, and he suddenly felt unbelievable. It is difficult for him to get such an effect from the strong men of the immortal arm, but in this starry sky, the first strong man killed can actually make his body undergo a powerful change. I don't know, it's because Kaz's body is unique, or, I can really absorb the blood of the powerful people in this starry sky and plunder the energy. If this is really the case, Thinking of this, a crazy look was brewing in the big mosquito's lantern-like compound eyes. Perhaps, this is a sign of the future bloodshed in this starry sky. The Kuti Tantalum camp. It has been nearly 2 hours since Master Jia Yan left, and the sun above his head is about to set. This Lord battle will end in just a moment. All the Kuti people are like restless chickens, wandering around. Every one of them forgets to say hello when they meet. Even if they say hello, they don't chat. Even if they chat, they don't know what they said. What? All in all, they were all distracted, and all of them felt anxious about the big mosquitoes that had left before. It's coming, it's coming. The communication is coming. Suddenly, a special communicator of Halila rang. He jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on. Turning on the communicator, Harola held her breath tightly. It seemed that if she breathed louder, the communicator would make noise. Chia, Master Jia Yan? Is that you? What, you really fought Kaz? Uh-huh. 1. Okay, I understand, I'll make arrangements right away. Harola and Ben didn't remember what they said. They just closed the communication in a daze, and then looked at the tribesmen standing around them, wanting to know the news. He looked at the faces, and finally at this moment, he showed a twisted smile. Tears rolled down his face. Victory! Master Jia Yan has defeated Kaz. Ha ha! Kaz is dead. From now on, the lord of this forest, please, and he will be our Lord Jia Yan. Ouch! A Kuti Tantalum man burst out with a terrifying cry at this moment. At this moment, like Harola, they all shed tears of surprise. No one knows how many hardships their race, which has just arrived on this planet, suffered here. The Lord Kaz who had been tormenting them is now dead, and Lord Jia Yan, who will defeat him next, will come to power. In this case, the Kuti Tantalum people will finally live a good life. At this time, a man named Kudatan burst into ecstatic cheers. Only the babies who were not yet sensible, sucked their fingers and looked at the cheers of the adults, and unknowingly also let out a terrible cry. Smile. The entire Kuti Tantalum camp erupted in joy. But some people are happy, and some people are destined to be sad. At this time, in the entire forest, the results of the battle between Big Mosquito and Lord Kaz began to spread like the wind. In an area of more than 1,000 kilometers, there are definitely many races that can survive, and some of them are quite big. But they had all survived under Kaz's hands in the past. Decades had passed since then. But today, they realized that Kaz, who was originally aloof and impossible to defeat in their opinion, actually had the power to defeat Kaz. An existence that cannot be defeated. And this existence will be their lord in the future. Please subscribe for genuine subscription. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 541. What's more important is that this was promoted by the strong people of Kudatan. You must know that many races have bullied the Kudatan people in the past. High-speed full text first published, let's read together. Therefore, there was suddenly a feeling of rumbling in the whole forest. Time passed quickly. Jia Yan, the tentative lord, had not yet taken office, but his influence had already had a great impact on the forest area. But Jia Yan himself doesn't have time to care about these things. He has many things of his own to do. During this period, Jia Yan was not only waiting for news from the powerful Tianlong, but also thinking of ways to continue to restore his strength. Sir, this is the magma energy sent by the Kuran tribe, a total of 50 kilograms. Sir, although the Luercu tribe said that there is no magma energy, they sent some energy honey unique to the tribe. 5 kilograms, but it contains no less energy than 50 kilograms of magma energy. One race after another, I don't know if it was the Kudi Tantalum people, but it was spread that Jia Yan had a habit of collecting energy liquids, so everyone sent their collected energy liquids to Jia Yan. Yes, these races are all friendly races. Please note them down so that I can be kinder to them in the future. Jia Yan suddenly smiled as he looked at the materials in front of him. It seems that no matter where he is, power is supreme, and now he can enjoy a bit of a sense of status on this planet. And the races in the forest are sending various substances to Jia Yan. They probably don't know that the monster Jia Yan will become more powerful in the future because of the substances they send, right? While enjoying these substances, Jia Yan continued to learn about this starry sky area. After several days of investigation, he finally understood that the star field at this time was actually in a place that he could never imagine. This starry sky, as a human being who knows a little bit of astronomical knowledge, will know that this is one of the main cantilevers of the Milky Way, the Sagittarius arm. If you don't know this knowledge, you only need to know that according to recent observations by people on Earth, there are only two cantilever arms of the Milky Way that are connected to the center of the Milky Way. That is the Sagittarius arm and the Swan arm. They are spiral-shaped and connect the entire Milky Way, surrounded and extending to the edge of the Milky Way. No wonder, I was originally in the Centaur arm. No wonder Oro would say that the Centaur arm is the most prosperous place. If we say which two places are truly important in the entire galaxy, they are the only two places that are the Centaur arm and the Swan arm. After Jia Yan knew that Oro's statement was correct, he looked at his position and realized that even in the Sagittarius arm, regional differences could penetrate the entire galaxy. After reading the information, he knew that the starry sky range he was in the area near the middle of the Sagittarius arm. In fact, it was not far from the Hercules arm. Of course, to say it's not far away is relative to the entire Milky Way galaxy. In fact, this starry sky is about 11,000 light-years away from the Angel's arm, which is already an extremely terrifying distance. 11,000 light-years. Seeing such terrifying numbers, Jia Yan almost felt dizzy. You know, in the gravitational wave system, he felt that time passed for a long time, but he did not expect that this amount of time could leap a full 11,000 light-years. You must know that this is a distance that light needs to travel for more than 10,000 years. How terrible that is! No wonder Jia Yan felt that the artistic conception of the entire world was different from before. You must know that although the universe is generally a vacuum, it still contains matter. Among them, the matter that Jia Yan feels is definitely different. Terrible. That Oro is indeed a genius. He was able to develop such a terrifying navigation tool. He deserves the title of the father of gravitational wave theory. When Jia Yan faced such a terrifying distance, he immediately felt an indescribable sense of fear. 11,000 light-years, if he went at his speed. Even if it takes hundreds of billions of years, it is impossible to fly back. Even if he strives to become a starry sky monster, a so-called stellar-level monster, he still can't return to the solar system. Deep down in his heart, there was still a sense of despair. However, the brilliance of civilization in this starry sky is definitely beyond previous expectations. There may be some ways to return to the solar system here. After all, here, there are some technologies that even Oro would admire. Thinking of this, Jia Yan continued to study the information. However, the starry sea is vast, and even if we are within the arm of a human, there are still huge barriers between each region of the starry sky. Distance forever limits communication between civilizations. Even if this starry sky far exceeds the level of civilization in the fairy arm, it is very difficult to know the knowledge of the more distant starry sky. He has gained nothing for the time being. Because this starry sky seems to be a relatively prosperous place, and the knowledge gained is very little. Sir, there is a strong man from the Tianlong domain coming to visit. Just when Jia Yan used a large amount of the liquid energy of those races and quickly recovered less than half of his strength, Tanger Tankai came to where Jia Yan was and reported to him. Huh? So fast? Jia Yan was suddenly startled, and then stood up from the hall without much emotion. Leave the hall area where you are and go towards the main hall of the Kuditan people. When the Kuditan people along the way saw Jia Yan, they all showed expressions of awe and affection. The awe was because of the strength of the Mosquito, and the love was because he helped the Kuditan people and even got the title of Lord Candidate. After his identity, there was no change. He still let the Kuditan people be responsible for his daily affairs. Even those races were left to the Kuditan people to deal with. The status of their Kuditan people was changed in a few days. Raised to an extremely high level. When Jia Yan came to the meeting hall of the Kuditan people, he saw a monster about 10 meters tall, sitting cross-legged in the hall, surrounded by several senior Kuditantalum people who were laughing with him. I said, "Your Lord Jia Yan is really dignified." He knew we were coming, but he didn't wait in the hall and asked me to wait for him. How brave he is. The monster's tail was beating everywhere in the meeting hall, knocking over some cabinets, tables, and chairs. Interesting, he knew I was already here, but he actually said such a thing. Jia Yan looked at the other party's back, still showing off his power, and immediately knew that the other party just wanted to give him a blow. His voice was not that of the so-called Lu Baisai before, but his strength was not low, and he seemed to have reached the peak of heaven level. He doesn't look much weaker than Kaz. Jia Yan walked into the hall calmly. "Hello. I'm Jia Yan," he said directly without much respect. The other party seemed to have just realized Jia Yan's arrival. He turned around and saw that he was like a dinosaur, with a tall figure and strong muscles. If Jia Yan were to judge, he was not only as strong as Kaz. Even the appearance is somewhat similar. When he saw Jia Yan, he obviously knew Jia Yan's appearance for a long time, and he smiled playfully. "Are you Jia Yan? Very good. You look quite decent. You are qualified to be Lord Xingrong's slave." Jia Yan frowned a little. "Slave? I don't remember what kind of slave I want to be. This powerful man, I defeated Kaz to become the lord of this forest, not a lord," he said, with a faint look in his compound eyes. Guangxi seems to be ready to take action if she doesn't agree with him. "Don't you want to be a slave of a strong heavenly dragon? Then just pretend that this thing didn't happen, because everyone who becomes a lord on the heavenly dragon star must nominally become a slave of a strong heavenly dragon. Oh, if you really don't want the title of slave, it doesn't matter if you call him a subordinate, isn't it the same?" he sneered. "Are slaves the same as subordinates? I'm sorry, I'm different from you. I don't care about subordinates. I can't accept the words of slaves." Jia Yan knew that this was a game played by the other party with him. No matter where in the starry sky, a strong person, especially a strong person who is at the peak of the heaven level, is very sensitive to similar issues. If a powerful being to this level wants to become the slave of other strong people, then what's the point of being strong? Of course, there are exceptions, and perhaps the 10-meter tall monster in front of me is one of them. Haha, I really don't know why you guys are so arrogant. If you want to say that you are my subordinates, then you can be my subordinates. Anyway, in front of Master Xingrong and other powerful Tianlongs, you are just ants like slaves." Shimai the monster chuckled arrogantly. A slightly strange light flickered in Jia Yanfu's eyes, but it didn't show anything. "Okay, since you are willing to be our Lord Xingrong's slave, oh, sorry, not a slave, but a subordinate, then follow me to the Tianlong domain and accept the canonization." The other party stood up from the ground, with his 10-meter tall body resting on the ceiling of the Kudi Tantalum Council Hall. Although Jia Yan was over 30 meters tall, that was his length. If he didn't raise his head deliberately, he would not be as tall as his opponent. The other party looked down at him, making Jia Yan a little uncomfortable, but now he had no other words to say, but his heart sank slightly, and he followed this strong man and walked outside the Kudi Tantalum camp. "Sir, you are here. Please do not conflict with the powerful Tianlong. This is a matter of life." Behind, Harola walked beside Jia Yan and whispered to him in a hurry. Jia Yan nodded slightly. Harola looked at the big mosquito and the strong man from the Tianlong domain, flying into the sky after a shock in the open area of the camp, with a trace of nervousness on his face. According to his understanding, their Lord Jia Yan has a very high self-esteem. He doesn't know what kind of life he has lived before. Perhaps he has an arrogant mood about becoming someone else's subordinate. Resist. If something happens in the Tianlong domain where strong men gather, not to mention becoming a lord, even the Kudi Tan people like them may be affected and the entire clan will be destroyed. You know, that is the Tianlong domain, the headquarters of one of the greatest superpowers in this galaxy. Jia Yan, who was flying in the sky, did not feel Harola's worry. At this time, he was just flying behind the 10-meter monster. Although Jia Yan had been humiliated by this monster several times before, Jia Yan felt a little unhappy at this time and had no emotion at all. Because he is not an unintelligent being, he knows very well the reason why the other party did this. This monster is definitely related to the so-called slave behind Kaz. As for whether the other party has the support of Lord Seeing Wrong behind him, it is unknown. "My lord, can I ask you your name?" After thinking about it, Jia Yan took the initiative to speak. "How can you ask me my name? Just follow me." The monster gave a cold drink. Jia Yan's words were blocked by him, and the anger in his heart was a bit unbearable. After his rebirth, although his life was not smooth sailing, he did not suffer any similar grievances. He almost relied on his strength to dominate the world. However, he did not expect that he who had reached such strength would still be in this starry sky, being wronged in front of a being who has not yet reached the level. But Jia Yan still warned himself, "Hold it back." Seeing Jia Yan's resigned look, the monster began to misunderstand. "That's right. I know you want to pretend to be a master in front of those Kudi Tantalum people, but do you know my identity? If you offend me by pretending to be a master in front of them, you will definitely suffer consequences in the future." Food. Boy, it is said that you just came to Tianlong Star, right? From now on, as a person, your eyes should be bright. Some people can be offended, and some people cannot be offended, do you understand? It turns out that this monster thought that Jia Yan's previous behavior was just to show off in front of the Kudi Tantalum people. A flash of light appeared in Jia Yanfu's eyes, but he still didn't make any move. Instead, he responded with a calm word at this time. "Yes, I understand, my lord." He lowered his stance. Anyway, there is nothing to be lost by speaking in a slightly lower stance. And Jia Yan just needs to remember this monster in his heart. "Okay, I also heard that you recently conducted a search in the forest. I wonder how the harvest was. We slaves are not as good as you in the Tianlong realm. We serve those adults all day long, and we are not as good at all. There's an opportunity." Seeing Jia Yan's posture lowering again and again, the monster immediately spoke again. Jia Yan was startled and vaguely understood something, but he did not accept this meaning. "Sir, you are joking. Those are just races in the forest. What they want to give to me is not worth much," he said. "There is no money system spread on this planet, but instead uses various currencies used in several nearby star fields, among which the currency of the Roots Empire is the most popular. So here, there is also money involved." When the monster saw that Jia Yan still didn't understand, or pretended not to understand, he immediately continued to explain clearly. "Haha, what you are doing is very wrong. You have to know that you are not the Lord now, and you have started to accept bribes. This cannot be justified by the powerful Tianlong. But now, if you are willing to hand over part of the money collected before, Maybe there is room for change, what do you think? There was a sinister meaning in what the other party said. Jia Yan also had a cold expression when he saw the other party showing his true face. Sir, I told you they are just worthless things. If you really don't believe it, I will give you part of it now. After saying that, a bottle filled with liquid flew out of Jia Yan's armor. The bottle was not big, and it was just a compressed version of the liquid Jia Yan brought for emergency use. It still has some effects on him, but it is of little value to creatures that cannot directly absorb energy. At this moment, the monster suddenly became really cold. He stopped speed, stood in the air, and looked back at Jia Yan. Jia Yan didn't have the slightest fear, he just looked at the other party. Very good. I remember you. It turns out that Lu Baisai was right. You are really a fool. Let's go. Go to the Tianlong domain. You will know the consequences of offending us. The monster flew forward, but this time, seems to want Jia Yan to make a fool of himself, flying faster and faster. But he was a little surprised to find that Jia Yan was able to follow him all the time, seemingly keeping the same distance and not falling behind at all. It doesn't matter, I'm not a fighting slave at all. Once we get there, it will be our world. Let's see how you deal with the other companions. This monster, looking coldly at Jia Yan behind him, had no intention of continuing to accelerate. Instead, it maintained a terrifying speed and flew forward. Jia Yan followed him, looking at the other person's generous back, and occasionally a glimmer of light appeared in his eyes. Their speed was quite fast, and mountains and forests passed quickly behind them. Jia Yan discovered that the forest he occupied was only a small area on this planet. There are also some so-called lords in other forests, and there are also some powerful creatures in the large ocean passing by. However, every time they wanted to attack the creatures flying unscrupulously above their heads, they all showed surprise after seeing the face of the monster leading them in front, and they quickly became respectful. Jia Yan also understood through this that these so-called slaves have extremely terrifying power on this planet. Of course, he didn't have any fear, because Jia Yan understood that he was not on the same level as these so-called slaves and lords. He now knows that among these so-called slaves and lords, there is no starry sky level existence at all. Jia Yan had some thoughts swirling in his heart, but when he came back to his senses, not far away, a huge urban area appeared in his sight. It's a huge and advanced alien city. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 542. When Jia Yan looked at the distant city, he had an illusion, as if he could vaguely see a city similar to Grey Star City No. 6. It's really similar. This city is not exaggeratedly big, it's about the same as City No. 6. There are also several distinct areas, and there are also seemingly very advanced things going around in them. However, compared to City No. 6, this city has a slightly more standardized feel. There are also some powerful people flying in the sky. Moreover, the city is very orderly, and all creatures seem to abide by some rules. Jia Yan has a strange feeling here at this moment, that is, at this time, all the creatures here are obviously demented. He looked at the slave monster flying beside him. What was a little strange was that this monster did not have such a serious tendency, while most of the creatures with average strength below were sluggish in their actions. Jia Yan vaguely guessed something, and now he was a little wary of the coming city. Okay, come with me. In this city, only the city defense can fly. If you dare to fly, don't blame me if you die. The slave monster leading the way led Jia Yan to fly downward. Jia Yan quickly followed. In the city ahead, there are extremely high city walls and city gates. The height of this city gate reaches 100 meters. Even if Jia Yan erected it, he would not be able to reach the top. It is simply extremely towering. Jia Yan walked forward with the monsters in front of him. He found that the ordinary creatures passing by them all knelt down one after another when they saw the slave monster leading him, looking extremely pious. Jia Yan also felt like he was being knelt down. He was a little uncomfortable with this feeling and fell a little behind. Those ordinary creatures continued to get up sluggishly after kneeling down and worshipping the slave monster in front of them, and went about their own things. You know now that even a slave like me has a high status here, right? The slave monster walked in front and said to Jia Yan with some pride. Yes, I understand, Jia Yan said lightly, but he sneered in his heart. It doesn't matter that he doesn't want this so-called status. If this monster wants something, then chickens and ducks are not the same. His idea of life is to become a strong man, but the other party is pursuing so-called rights and interests. They are not a creature. When I came to the tall city gate, I saw this monster from a distance. In front of the city gate, a small group of creatures that seemed to be about 5 meters tall were riding on a creature that was 15 or 6 meters in length, running quickly towards this side. Come! There was an earth-shaking movement on the ground, and the whole earth was faintly shaking. It can be seen that this small group of cavalry is extremely terrifying when they attack. Jia Yan looked at this small group of cavalry without any emotion. Because this small group of cavalry, including the creatures under them, did not exceed the earth level, in his opinion, it was just a thing in name only. Lord Kaka. We welcome your return. The first rider came to the slave monster, quickly rolled off the saddle, and knelt down in front of it. Jia Yan even sneered in his heart. With this kind of behavior, it seems that the entire style of this so-called Tianlong domain can be seen clearly. However, he only just knew that the slave was called Lord Kaka. At this time, the monster looked lightly at the kneeling cavalry on the ground. With a satisfied smile, he stretched out his hand and asked all the cavalry to stand up. How about it? If you are willing to be a slave, maybe you still have a chance now. When the cavalry lined up one by one and led Master Kaka and Jia Yan into the city, Master Kaka turned back, looked at Jia Yan, and said seductively. Jia Yan had long been disgusted by his behavior. Now when he heard these words, he was almost speechless. The other party actually thought that he would want to enjoy this kind of treatment just like these guys. Ha ha. Jia Yan laughed. Then he shook his head. Master Kaka, I was born a savage, so I will no longer join you. Thank you for your invitation. Ignorance, Master Kaka snorted coldly. Why couldn't he see that Jia Yan still looked down upon their style? In fact, the other party has no good intentions when they want to let Jia Yan join the ranks of their so-called slaves, because slaves like them do not get this status in a day. Strong strength is just a requirement. If things are not done well, the same status will be extremely high. Low. If Jia Yan is hot-headed and agrees to join, then in the days to come, he will have a way to let this proud master enjoy the methods of his Lord Kaka. But it's impossible for Jia Yan to agree. The two continued to move forward, and Jia Yan looked at the bustling scenery around him with some surprise. It was not clear from the sky. Now that I faced the city directly on the ground, I discovered the style of the city. It not only has skyscrapers with a strong sense of sci-fi in alien cities, but it also has some religious-like buildings, some of which look like those of religious members. Monsters, dressed in strange costumes, come and go among them. There are also some flying cars flying around in the sky, but they all obey the traffic rules and there is no possibility of collision. In general, the style of this city is very unique. In other words, Jia Yan has only seen a city on an alien planet called Gray-Yellow Planet. When he sees a city on another planet, it will always feel a little different. The two of them are huge, and when passing the road, there will always be some various creatures crawling down and praying to Master Nakaka. Through this scene, Jia Yan had a preliminary understanding of this so-called dragon domain. It seems that what is being done here is arrive. Master Nakaka came to an open place and then called Jia Yan. Jia Yan looked up and saw a large area of golden light in front of him. This is a building similar to the insect on Earth, with a bright and colorful surface that is very eye-catching. It covers a vast area, from one side to the other, you can't even see the end, maybe more than 10 kilometers. There are many creatures of various colors coming and going among them, and some monsters are extremely powerful creatures, reaching the peak of heaven level. The clothes worn by these monsters are somewhat similar to Master Kaka, who let Jia Yan walking in front. Haha, Kaka, you are back. Is this the one who challenged the Lord and won as mentioned before? A guy who looked similar to Kaka walked up to Kaka and looked at Jia Yan behind him with a hint of interest in his eyes. Yes, he is still a good guy. It seems that we will have fun next time, Kaka responded with a smile. Jia Yan's eyes flickered, and then he followed Kaka without saying anything. This is Lord Xingrong's palace. There are 7 powerful heavenly dragons in total, Lord Xingrong is one of them, and the cities around the palace are just affiliated with the palace. Lord Kaka walked casually with Jia Yan explained. Okay, thank you for your advice, Jia Yan nodded. However, Kaka didn't seem to have any idea of continuing to say anything, but continued to move forward with Jia Yan. Coming to a long corridor, Kaka became a little nervous. He said to Jia Yan, "You will meet Lord Xingrong next. Remember not to say unnecessary words or contradict the Lord. If something happens, it's an accident, don't expect us to save you, but don't drag me into the water, you know I brought you here." Okay, Jia Yan agreed silently. There was something brilliant in his compound eyes, and he looked at the main hall in front of him. There was the so-called Lord Xingrong, and what kind of powerful person this Tianlong expert was, and what kind of person this Tianlong expert would be. What kind of existence, the answer to this matter will soon appear in front of him. Kaka continued to lead Jia Yan forward. Jia Yan looked ahead for a moment, and after seeming to feel no dangerous aura, he moved forward without saying a word. Click, click, click. When Kaka reported a monster in front of the hall that was as tall as a mountain and far more powerful than Kaka, the monster slowly opened the heavy iron door of the hall. Jia Yan became a little more solemn at this time. Because he discovered that the monster guarding the hall was actually a starry sky level. Although he is just a guy who looks like he has just entered the starry sky level, he is a starry sky level without any moisture. This made Jia Yan a little shocked. After all, if even the monster he was guarding was a starry sky level, then he had no idea how powerful the so-called heavenly dragon might be. Just when Jia Yan passed the monster, the muscles of the monster, which was more than 40 meters in size, stiffened. Then he looked at Jia Yan in surprise, but he did not see any star-level appearance in him. Suddenly feeling a little strange, he looked away. Jia Yan looked at the starry sky-level monster. When he saw the other person looking at him with some confusion, he quickly restrained some of his brainwave power. Afraid of being caught by the other party. However, he originally lost energy, and at the previous moment, he was just like this monster. Kankan had reached the early stage of starry sky level, so now that his energy is reduced, the other party will naturally be unable to see his true identity. However, Jia Yan was still a little frightened and walked forward, thinking in his heart whether anything would change if Master Xingrong saw his strength. "Sir. Your most loyal slave, Kaka is back, sir, be well." As soon as Master Kaka entered the hall, his appearance seemed to have changed. He knelt down and lay directly on the ground, kneeling all the way forward. Jia Yan was startled by his performance, but he didn't take another look. Instead, he put his gaze on the top of the hall where Kaka was walking. This is a hall with a length of about 1 kilometer and a height of about 200 meters. There are brocades and silks everywhere on the walls, which are overflowing with light and look extremely luxurious. At the very front of the hall, there is a seat high up. Sitting on it was a monster that looked like it had a parrot's beak but was extremely fat and had 10 arms. This monster is about 70 meters tall, and its body is so bloated that it looks like a mountain of flesh just sitting there. He was wearing a soft gauze scarf, which was transparent and nondescript. Although the few around him are also aliens, even from the eyes of Earthlings, they can see huge female creatures full of beauty. Each of them has almost heaven-level strength, but at this moment, they seem to be the maids who please this strong man. 2 are feeding, and 2 are helping the strong man convey the energy breeze. It is simply the greatest enjoyment in the world. As for the other party's laziness, when he saw Kaka entering, he didn't even raise his eyelids, but looked past Kaka and looked directly at the big mosquito Jia Yan. At this moment, Jia Yan felt a huge sense of oppression coming over his body. This sense of oppression was extremely strong as an abyss, making Jia Yan feel extremely uncomfortable all over his body. He was startled and a little surprised. The power of this monster far exceeded his expectation. It might even reach the level of Starry Sky level. At least compared to the battle on the gray-yellow star, Odawa was more powerful than before. Oh, Kaka, you did a good job. Oh, very good. Such a huge monster, and Lord seeing wrong with such a terrifying aura. When he suddenly spoke, Jia Yan, a giant mosquito, almost didn't spit out his breath. It turned out that this guy had a mouth like a parrot, and his voice was like a parrot, with a high pitch. It doesn't match his momentum and appearance at all. Jia Yan almost knelt down. Yes, sir, this is the guy named Jia Yan. Kaka kneeled forward and glared at Jia Yan behind him. Boy, how dare you stand and not kneel down in front of me? Jia Yan was startled, and then a kind of hesitation flashed in his heart. Kneel? That's so stupid. But if you don't kneel, the opponent seems to be really powerful. Even if Jia Yan recovers all his fighting power, he might not be able to stand in front of this guy for long. If this terrifying Lord seeing wrong is really angry, can he bear it? In the end, will one kneel down and be freed from danger, or will he never lose his dignity even if he encounters danger? Thinking of this, Jia Yan suddenly felt a sense of arrogance welling up in his heart. What do you pray for? Ever since his rebirth, Jia Yan has never been so useless. Even if there were several life and death crises, when did he not grit his teeth and spend it with self-respect? Do you want to have reached such a moment and overthrow your own efforts, and kneel down to worship a strong man you just met, regardless of your self-esteem? No thanks. It's impossible to worship either. Thinking of this, Jia Yan did not move, but made a deep voice. Lord Kaka, there are no rules that say that if you want to become a lord, you must kneel down and bow down to Lord seeing wrong, right? His feet seem to have roots. Although a mosquito's kneeling may be just crawling, but in front of other creatures, it is like this. It's not a good feeling to surrender. Asshole, what are you talking about? Which lord is not like this, you? Kaka did not expect that Jia Yan would not even cooperate with this most basic thing, and he suddenly shouted and cursed in shock. Oh. Kaka, you brought an interesting person here, it's fun. Oh, little friend, you don't have to kneel down, come here and let me see you. The bloated monster above seemed to have something in its narrow eyes. A ray of light emerged, and then a strange voice came out. His voice seemed funny, but Jia Yan didn't mean to laugh at all. Even if the other party used a weird voice, any words he said would still have enough weight against the background of his strength. Jia Yan. My lord asked you to come forward. Come over quickly and be respectful. Kaka quickly turned his head at this moment and shouted to Jia Yan. There was an inexplicable strange look in Jia Yanfu's eyes. Under Kaka's urging, he finally took steps. But at this time, his energy began to surge. He knew that he was probably far from being a match for Master Seeing Wrong, but if the other party really had any ill intentions, Jia Yan would definitely fight to the end even if he had to fight. However, this does not seem to have happened. Oh oh oh. What a handsome young man, you are still very young, Mr. Singrong let out a series of exclamations when Jia Yan was less than 50 meters away. 50 meters is already a very, very close distance for such huge monsters. It can be said that they can launch an attack in a matter of seconds. Lord Singrong, thank you very much. I am indeed not very old, Jia Yan responded calmly. The age of a creature can be roughly judged from its appearance and spirit, but this requires a little experience. Obviously this Lord Singrong is this kind of existence. Oh oh oh. I can still see that you are injured. Were you once a starry sky level before? Oh oh oh. Don't look at me like that, quack, ordinary starry sky level, I don't like it. You are included in it, quack quack. Master Xingrong's voice was extremely sharp, and the words he spoke were a bit hurtful. Although he did not do anything bad because Jia Yan was once a starry sky level, he actually said that even if he was a starry sky level, and there is nothing different to say about him. Jia Yan was startled. He has already surged with energy, and the other party must be able to see this, but he obviously did not expect that this powerful existence, it seems that even this guy who suddenly appeared, an injured starry sky level, is not that big. Care. The next moment, Xingrong's words made the big stone in Jia Yan's heart finally fall to the ground. Oh oh oh. Your injury is very serious, and the energy loss is also very serious, so you need at least 50 years of training before you can recover. Good boy, work hard for me, Lord Singrong. If you do well, there is a way for you to recover in 30 years, and then you will become one of my generals. Oh oh oh. What a wonderful decision, you can guard the door for me in the future. He became happy and seemed unable to suppress his own energy. In an instant, there was a terrible shock wave, which violently flew away a female creature next to him.